They thought Ethan Cole was nobody, just another broke father barely scraping by, too tired to matter, too ordinary to notice. The kind of man the world looks past without a second thought. But when they targeted his daughter, they made a mistake they couldn't undo, because the exhausted worker stocking shelves at midnight wasn't what he appeared to be. And by the time they understood what they'd awakened, the game was already over. The underdog they dismissed was about to dismantle everything they'd built. Stay with me until the end. This story cuts deeper than you think. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this journey reaches. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and defeat. Ethan Cole sat at a plastic table scarred with cigarette burns and carved initials, eating a sandwich he'd made at 5 that morning. White bread, peanut butter, nothing else. The jelly had run out 3 days ago. Lily had noticed but hadn't said anything, which somehow made it worse. Across from him, Danny Martinez was complaining about his ex-wife again. Same story, different day. Child support he couldn't afford, a custody arrangement that felt like punishment, a system designed to break men like them. Ethan made the appropriate sounds, grunts of sympathy, a few nods, but his mind was elsewhere. $73 in his account. Rent due in 5 days. The electric company had sent a final notice. And Lily needed new shoes. She'd shown him that morning, holding up the left sneaker with its sole peeling away like a bad secret trying to escape. "It's okay, Daddy," she'd said, smiling. "They still work fine." 6 years old, already learning to lower her expectations. Ethan had kissed her forehead and lied. "We'll get you new ones this weekend." The lie sat in his stomach now, heavy and familiar. "You even listening?" Danny asked. "Yeah, your ex is still making things difficult." "Difficult?" Danny laughed, bitter. "She's bleeding me dry, man, and the court don't care. They see the paycheck, not the bills." Ethan checked his watch. 3 minutes left on break. The Riverside warehouse didn't pay you to sit, only to move. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, lifting boxes that would end up in homes he'd never afford, building someone else's empire while his own life crumbled. "I gotta get back," Ethan said. "Yeah, okay. Hey, you good? You look like hell." "Just tired." "Ain't we all?" Ethan threw his trash away and walked back onto the floor. The warehouse was massive, all concrete and fluorescent lighting, and the constant beep of forklifts reversing. 40 workers cycling through shifts that ground them down to nothing. Most wouldn't last a year. Ethan had been here 8 months, ever since the accident. He didn't think about Sarah during work. Couldn't afford to. The grief was too big, and if he let it in while he was here, it would swallow him whole. So he compartmentalized, worked, survived, went home to Lily, and pretended he had answers when she asked questions about heaven. "Cole!" Marcus Rodriguez's voice cut through the warehouse noise like a blade. The floor supervisor stood at the end of an aisle, clipboard in hand, gut hanging over his belt. He'd been a high school football player once, back when Ashford still had a team worth watching. Now he was just another middle-aged man taking his failures out on people who couldn't fight back. Ethan walked over. "Yeah? Yeah?" Marcus repeated, mocking. "That's how you answer your supervisor?" "What do you need, Marcus?" "What I need is for you to move faster. We got a shipment coming in at 4, and if it's not processed by end of shift, that's your ass. I'll handle it." "You better. I'm tired of covering for you." Marcus hadn't covered for anything, but Ethan needed this job, so he swallowed what he wanted to say and nodded. "Understood." "Good. Now get moving." Ethan returned to his station and started scanning boxes. The work was mindless, which was both blessing and curse. It left too much room for thinking, for remembering, for calculating the distance between where he was and where he'd once been. He'd been someone once, had mattered, had walked into rooms where decisions got made and futures got decided. Marine Corps captain, strategic operations, deployments he still couldn't talk about, doing work that had no official record. He'd been good at it, better than good. Then Sarah died, and everything that mattered rewrote itself. Lily was all that was left of that life, the only thing worth protecting, and right now he was failing her. The shift ended at 6. Ethan punched out, grabbed his jacket from a locker that wouldn't close all the way, and headed for the bus stop. The November air bit at his skin. His jacket was too thin for the weather, but a new one wasn't in the budget, hadn't been for a while. The bus was late. Always was. Ethan leaned against the shelter and watched the city move past him. Ashford had been something once, when the mills ran and the river was clean. Now it was just another Rust Belt town slowly dying, its best days in the rear view and nothing ahead but decline. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Chen, Lily asking about dinner. I gave her crackers and apple slices. Hope okay? Ethan closed his eyes. He'd promised Lily they'd get McDonald's tonight, something to look forward to after a hard week. But payday wasn't until Friday, and his account was already overdrawn. The bank had been kind enough to let a few small charges through, but they'd hit him with fees that made the math even worse. He texted back, "Thank you. Be there in 30." The bus arrived 17 minutes late, packed with people who looked as worn down as Ethan felt. He found a seat in the back next to a woman who smelled like cigarettes and perfume. She didn't acknowledge him. Nobody did. He'd gotten good at being invisible. The apartment building on Mercer Street was the kind of place that appeared in news reports when something bad happened. Cracked siding, broken windows covered with cardboard, a front entrance where the lock had been busted so long ago nobody bothered to fix it anymore. Ethan climbed 3 flights of stairs that groaned with every step and knocked on Mrs. Chen's door. She opened it with Lily already there, backpack on, ready to go.
Daddy!
Lily wrapped her arms around his waist, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. She smelled like the lavender soap Mrs. Chen used and something sweet, maybe the apple slices. Hey, sweetheart. Good day at school? We learned about fractions. Mrs. Patterson said I'm really good at them. That's because you are. Mrs. Chen handed him Lily's lunchbox. The older woman's expression was carefully neutral, but Ethan saw the worry there. The pity. He was 2 weeks behind on paying her, and she was too kind to bring it up. Friday, Ethan said quietly. I'll pay you Friday. No rush. She's a good girl. They crossed the hallway to his own apartment. 1 bedroom, kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, living room that felt more like a closet. But it was clean. That was something he could control. Keep the space clean, keep things in order, maintain some dignity even when everything else was falling apart. Lily dropped her backpack and went straight to the bookshelf where her toys lived. She'd organized them into some system only she understood. Dolls on the left, stuffed animals on the right, everything arranged just so. Ethan watched her adjust a teddy bear's position and felt his chest tighten. She deserved better than this. In the kitchen, Ethan assessed what they had. Half a box of pasta. Can of tomato sauce that was probably fine despite being past the date on the label. Frozen mixed vegetables that had been in the freezer so long they'd started to frost over. Not McDonald's, but it would keep her fed. While the water boiled, Ethan pulled out his laptop. The thing was 6 years old, running slow, but it still worked. He had job applications out everywhere. Anything that paid more than the warehouse. 14 companies. 13 rejections or silence. But there was 1 email sitting unread in his inbox, received 5 hours ago. Subject line that made his stomach twist. Interview request, strategic operations position. Ethan stared at it. The sender was Meridian Global. He'd applied 3 weeks ago, late one night when Lily was asleep, and he'd let himself imagine impossible things. The job posting had been vague, strategic operations coordinator, but the salary range had been enough to make him hold his breath. 60 to 80,000, maybe more. He clicked. Mr. Cole, thank you for your application. Your background caught our attention. We'd like to invite you for an interview this Thursday at 2 p.m. Please confirm your availability. Grace Winters, Senior Talent Acquisition, Meridian Global. Ethan read it 3 times, looking for the catch. There had to be one. Men who worked warehouse jobs didn't get interviews at places like Meridian. Not without connections. Not with resumes that had gaps. Big gaps. The kind that raised questions. Daddy, is the pasta ready? He closed the laptop fast. Almost. Lily appeared beside him, standing on her toes to see the stove. Can I help stir? Sure. Careful, it's hot. He lifted her up and let her hold the wooden spoon while he kept his hand over hers, guiding. She took it seriously, concentrating hard, and Ethan felt something break loose in his chest. Love mixed with fear, mixed with desperation. They ate at the small table by the window. Lily told him about school, the fractions lesson, a kid named Tommy who kept eating glue, her teacher's announcement about a family history project they'd be starting soon. "We have to interview someone in our family," Lily said. "About where they came from." Ethan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Yeah? Can I interview you?" "Of course." "Where did you come from?" "Right here, Ashford, born at Mercy Hospital." "Where did Grandpa come from?" "Same place. His daddy worked in the mills." Lily absorbed this. "What about Mommy's family?" And there it was, the question that always came eventually. "Your mom grew up in Boston," Ethan said carefully. "Her parents, your grandparents, they passed away before you were born. Do I have any family left, besides you?" "You have me, that's enough." She seemed to accept that, going back to her pasta. But Ethan saw the question still sitting there, unfinished. Lily was smart. She noticed things, like how other kids had aunts and uncles and cousins, how she only had a father who worked too much and struggled to smile. After dinner, they read together on the couch. Lily picked a book about a brave mouse, sounding out the harder words with her finger tracing the lines. Ethan listened and made the appropriate impressed sounds, but his mind kept drifting back to the email. Meridian Global. He knew the name. Everyone in business did. They were one of those firms that operated in the background, consulting, crisis management, corporate restructuring, the kind of company that came in when things were broken and either fixed them or buried them. Their client list was rumored to include half the Fortune 500, and they wanted to interview him. Why? At 8:30, Ethan tucked Lily into bed. They shared the bedroom, her in the actual bed, him on a sleeping bag on the floor. He'd tried to give her privacy by rigging up a curtain, but she'd asked him to take it down, said she didn't like being separated. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" "Are we poor?" The question hit him like a punch. "Why do you ask that?" "Tommy said his mom said we must be poor because I wear the same clothes a lot." Ethan felt anger flash hot and quick. Some kid's mother gossiping about a 6-year-old. He forced it down. Tommy's mom should mind her own business. "But are we?" He sat on the edge of the bed. "We're doing okay. We have a home. We have food. We have each other. That's what matters." "I know, She trailed off, then said quietly, "I don't want you to be sad." "I'm not sad." "You look sad sometimes. When you think I'm not watching." Ethan's throat tightened. 6 years old, and she was already trying to carry his burdens. "I'm okay, Lily. I promise. And things are going to get better." "How do you know?" "Because I'm going to make them better." She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. I believe you." Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan stayed there, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of every promise he'd ever made settling on his shoulders. He moved to the living room and opened the laptop again. Spent the next 2 hours researching Meridian Global. What he found was impressive and strange. The company had been founded 12 years ago by Alexander Hale, a former McKinsey consultant who'd built Meridian into something that didn't quite fit standard categories. They did consulting, yes, but they also did crisis management, corporate intelligence, strategic advisory work that sounded more like espionage than business advice. Their portfolio included rescuing failing companies, managing hostile takeover defenses, and what they carefully termed complex stakeholder management. The language was corporate smooth, but Ethan could read between the lines. This wasn't just consulting, this was shadow work. He dug deeper, using search techniques most people didn't know existed. Found articles about Meridian's involvement in situations that had made headlines, always in the background, never in the spotlight. A tech company that had avoided collapse despite a CEO scandal. A pharmaceutical firm that had weathered a regulatory nightmare. A bank that should have failed during the financial crisis but somehow didn't. Meridian's fingerprints were there if you knew what to look for, and they all pointed to the same conclusion. This was a firm that solved problems other people couldn't or wouldn't. Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it for a moment before answering. "Yeah?" "Heard you got an interview." The voice was familiar, gravel and smoke, West Texas accent that nothing could soften. Interesting choice. Ethan's pulse kicked up. Marcus, the one and only Marcus Webb. They'd served together, bled together, nearly died together in a Caracas safehouse while the world fell apart outside. Last Ethan had heard, Marcus had gone private sector. contracting work for companies that needed problems handled quietly. "How'd you know about the interview?" Ethan asked. "Because I'm the one who recommended you." Ethan stood, moving to the window. The street below was quiet, just a few cars passing. "Why?" "Because you're wasting away in that warehouse, and we both know it. Because your kid deserves better. And because Meridian needs someone who can actually do the work." "What work?" "The kind you used to be good at. Strategy, intelligence, seeing what other people miss." Marcus paused. "They're not looking for a consultant, Ethan. They're looking for an operator." "I'm not that anymore." "Bullshit. You don't stop being who you are just because you punch a different clock." Ethan watched his reflection in the window. Tired eyes, too thin face, the ghost of someone he used to be. "I walked away from that world." "And how's that working out? You happy? Fulfilled? Living the dream?" "I'm raising my daughter. In a shithole apartment with duct-taped shoes and peanut butter sandwiches. Yeah, a real American dream you got there." The words stung because they were true. "What's your point?" "My point is, you're better than this. You always were. And Meridian's offering you a way out." Marcus's tone shifted, got serious. "But I'm not going to lie to you. This isn't easy money. The work is complicated. The stakes are real. And the people you'll be dealing with aren't playing games." "Then why recommend me?" "Because you're the best strategist I ever worked with. And because I know you won't sell out, won't cut corners, and won't quit when things get hard." A pause. "And because I owe you." "Caracas, remember?" Ethan remembered. The safe house. The extraction that went wrong. Marcus taking 2 rounds in the chest would have taken a third to the head if Ethan hadn't moved first. They'd made it out by inches. "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said. "Yeah, I do. So take the interview, see what they offer. And if it feels wrong, walk away. But at least give yourself the option." "What's Meridian really doing, Marcus?" "Solving problems. Same as we used to, just with better pay and fewer bullets." He laughed. "Usually fewer bullets." "That's not reassuring." "It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be honest." Marcus exhaled. "Look, I gotta go. Think about it. And Ethan, be careful in that interview. Grace Winters is sharp. She'll see right through any bullshit." The line went dead. Ethan stood there for a long time, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Then he pulled up the email again and typed a response. "Miss Winters, I'll be there Thursday at 2 p.m. Ethan Cole." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Thursday came fast. Ethan called in sick to the warehouse, something he never did, which made Marcus Rodriguez suspicious enough to interrogate him for 10 minutes. Ethan stuck to his story. Stomach bug, couldn't risk it, would be back tomorrow. Rodriguez finally let it go with a warning about attendance. The suit came from Goodwill. $30 he couldn't afford, but showing up in warehouse clothes wasn't an option. It fit okay. Sleeves were a little short, pants a little long. He'd borrowed a tie from Danny Martinez, who'd asked why he needed it and accepted job interview without pushing. Mrs. Chen agreed to pick up Lily from school. Ethan promised to pay her Friday, along with the back rent he owed. She waved him off, told him not to worry, which only made him worry more. The Ashford Tower stood in the financial district like a monument to money, 43 floors of glass and steel gleaming in the afternoon sun. Meridian Global occupied the top 12. Ethan stood on the sidewalk and looked up, feeling out of place in a way he hadn't felt in years. He'd walked into worse. Hostile territory, active combat zones, rooms where everyone wanted him dead. This was just a job interview. He went inside. The lobby was marble and chrome, all clean lines and indirect lighting. A security desk sat near the elevators, manned by 2 guards who looked more alert than rent-a-cops usually did. Ethan noticed details automatically, the way they tracked movement, the slight bulges under their jackets, the positions they'd chosen for maximum coverage, not corporate security. Something else. He gave his name to the receptionist. She checked her computer, made a call, then handed him a visitor badge. 32nd floor. Miss Winters is expecting you. The elevator was empty. Ethan rode it up, watching the numbers climb, forcing his breathing to stay even. By the time the doors opened, he'd compartmentalized everything, the nerves, the questions, the warning from Marcus. Grace Winters waited in a conference room with windows that looked out over the entire city. She was maybe 45, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month. Dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes that assessed him in about 2 seconds flat. "Mr. Cole?" She extended her hand, firm grip. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. Please, sit." Ethan took the chair across from her. The table was polished so clean he could see his reflection in it, slightly warped, like looking at himself through water. Grace opened a folder. His resume sat on top, along with other documents he definitely hadn't provided. "Your application was unusual," she said. 8 months in a warehouse, before that some logistics work, and before that significant gaps. 7 years of them, in fact. Ethan said nothing. Before the gaps, though, that's where it gets interesting. Marine Corps, captain, multiple deployments, specialized training that's mostly redacted from public record. She looked up. "What exactly did you do, Mr. Cole?" "Strategic operations." "Which means advisory work, training allied forces, mission planning." "And the parts that aren't in the official record?" "Still classified, Mom." Grace smiled. It wasn't warm. "I respect discretion. It's rare these days. You seem to know more about me than what I put in my application. We're thorough. Due diligence matters when you're considering someone for sensitive work." She closed the folder. "Tell me, why Meridian? You're working in a warehouse right now. This is quite a leap." "I need better pay. I have a daughter to support." "There are other jobs between warehouse worker and strategic operations coordinator. Why not try for those first?" "Because this is what I know how to do. What you used to know how to do. You've been out of that world for a while. What makes you think you can step back in?" Ethan met her eyes. "Because the skills don't disappear. The training doesn't fade. I've been working logistics because it pays the bills and lets me be there for my daughter. But I still see patterns. I still solve problems. I still think 5 moves ahead. That doesn't just turn off. Even when you're stocking shelves, especially then, you learn a lot about systems watching a warehouse operate, about inefficiency, about how small failures compound, about human behavior under pressure." Grace stood and walked to the window. Ethan stayed where he was, watching her reflection in the table. "Meridian handles complex problems," she said. "We go into failing companies and restructure them. We manage crises that could destroy reputations. We find solutions when conventional wisdom says there aren't any." She turned back. "The people who do this work aren't ordinary. They see what others miss. They think what others won't. And they're comfortable in gray areas where most people get lost." "I understand gray areas." "Do you? Because from here, Mr. Cole, you look like a man who's been running, who tried very hard to be normal, safe, invisible." She walked back to the table. "We don't need safe." Ethan felt something shift, a door he'd kept sealed starting to crack. "What do you need? Someone who can walk into a room full of people who think they're smarter than him and prove them wrong without them realizing it. Someone who doesn't break when things get complicated. Someone who understands that winning sometimes means making everyone think you've already lost." She sat down. "We need someone who's invisible until the exact moment they choose not to be." The description was too specific, too targeted. "This isn't a normal interview," Ethan said. "No. You already know exactly who I am. We know who you were. Whether you're still that person, that's what I'm here to find out." Grace leaned back. "Marcus Webb vouched for you. Said you were the best strategist he'd ever worked with. Also said you'd probably refused this meeting 3 times before showing up." "I only refused it once." "In your head, maybe, but you almost deleted that email 4 times before responding." She was right. Ethan had hovered over the delete button, finger shaking, before finally hitting send. "What's the actual job?" he asked. Grace pulled out another folder. "We have a client, tech company, 15 years old, grew fast, now imploding. Internal politics, external pressure, board divided, CEO losing control. There's a hostile takeover in the works, and several executives are playing both sides. That's not consulting. No, it's intelligence work. Corporate, but still intelligence." She slid the folder across. "We've been hired to stabilize the situation. That means identifying who's loyal, who's compromised, and who needs to be removed, quietly." Ethan looked at the folder without touching it. "And you need me because? Because you're nobody. You'll walk in looking like middle management, unremarkable, forgettable. And while everyone's focused on the obvious power players, You'll be mapping the real structure, finding leverage, building the case. If I say no, then you go back to the warehouse. Keep struggling. Keep lying to your daughter about when things will get better. Grace's voice wasn't cruel, just factual. But you won't say no, because Lily deserves better than duct-taped shoes, and you're tired of pretending ordinary is enough. The mention of Lily's name, her actual name, sent ice through Ethan's veins. How do you know? I told you, we're thorough. Ethan stood. You had no right to look into my daughter. We looked into you. She's part of your life. That makes her relevant. Grace stayed seated, calm. And before you storm out, we didn't dig into anything that isn't public record. School enrollment, medical records you've had to provide for subsidized insurance, the custody agreement from your wife's estate. She's 6 years old, and she's the reason you're here, the reason you need this job, the reason you'll say yes. Grace folded her hands. I'm not threatening her, Mr. Cole. I'm stating facts. You need money. We're offering it. The question is whether you're willing to do what it takes to earn it. Ethan's jaw clenched. Every instinct told him to walk out, but every instinct also knew Grace was right. He sat back down. How much? Base salary of $120,000. Performance bonuses that could add another 60 to 80. Full benefits, medical, dental, vision. An assigning bonus of $25,000 paid immediately upon acceptance. $25,000. Enough to catch up on everything. Rent, Mrs. Chen, new shoes for Lily, food that wasn't peanut butter sandwiches. When would I start? Monday. 4 days from now. Is that a problem? Ethan thought about Lily, about the promises he'd made, about Sarah's voice in his head telling him to do whatever it took to keep their daughter safe. No, he said. Not a problem. Grace extended her hand. Welcome to Meridian, Mr. Cole. Ethan shook it, feeling the door he'd spent years keeping closed swing wide open. He'd just stepped back into a world he'd fought to leave, and something in his gut told him that getting out again wouldn't be easy. The signing bonus hit Ethan's account on Saturday morning at 6:47 a.m. He was awake when it happened, hadn't really slept, just laid on the couch, staring at cracks in the ceiling while his mind churned through what he'd agreed to. When his phone buzzed with the bank notification, he checked it 3 times to make sure the number was real. $25,000. More money than he'd seen in one place since before the accident, since before Sarah, since before everything had collapsed into this narrow life of counting pennies and making promises he couldn't keep. Lily was still asleep. Ethan stood in the doorway of the bedroom and watched her breathe, curled up under a blanket that was too thin for November but all they had. The morning light coming through the window caught her face, and for a moment she looked exactly like Sarah. Same profile. Same way her hand tucked under her chin when she slept. He'd failed Sarah. Hadn't been there when it mattered, but he wouldn't fail Lily. First thing he did was pay rent. Walked down to Vincent's apartment, the landlord lived on the first floor, close to the money, and knocked until the man answered in his usual stained tracksuit and cloud of cigar smoke. Cole, it's Saturday. This better be good. Ethan held out an envelope. Cash. 2 months' rent plus the late fees that had been piling up. Getting current. Vincent took the envelope and counted it twice, his thick fingers moving slowly through the bills. His expression shifted from suspicion to surprise. You hit the lottery or something? Got a new job. Must be some job. Vincent stuffed the money in his tracksuit pocket without offering a receipt. Never did. You're paid through January. Try to stay that way. Plan to. Back upstairs, Ethan made another envelope for Mrs. Chen. $600. What he owed plus extra for all the time she'd watched Lily without complaint, fed her dinner when Ethan worked late, asked for nothing. When he knocked on her door at 8, she was already up, probably had been for hours. Ethan. She looked surprised to see him. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted to give you this. He handed her the envelope. Mrs. Chen opened it and her eyes went wide. This is too much. It's what I owe you, plus a little extra for being patient with me. I don't need extra. Lily is a good girl. It's not work. Please take it. Ethan put his hand over hers. You've helped us when you didn't have to. Let me do this. Her eyes got wet. She said something in Mandarin. He caught the word for thank you, heard the rest in her tone, and squeezed his hand. You're a good father. Sarah would be proud. The words hit harder than Ethan expected. He nodded, not trusting his voice, and went back to his apartment before the emotion could crack through. At 9, he woke Lily by sitting on the edge of the bed and brushing hair from her forehead. She opened her eyes slowly, confused for a second, then smiled. "Morning, Daddy." "Morning, sweetheart. You ready for an adventure?" "What kind of adventure?" "The kind where you get new shoes." Lily sat up fast. "Really? New shoes?" "Really. And maybe some other stuff too." She threw her arms around his neck, and Ethan held her there for a moment, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and feeling something loosen in his chest. This was why he'd taken the job, why he'd walked back into a world he'd sworn off. For moments like this. They took the bus to Palmer Avenue, to the discount store with the buzzing fluorescent lights and floors that stuck to your shoes. It wasn't fancy, but the prices were reasonable, and they had what Lily needed. Ethan held her hand as they walked through the automatic doors, and he felt her grip tighten with excitement. The children's shoe section was in the back. Lily approached it like she was entering a church, quiet, reverent, almost afraid to touch anything. Ethan watched her examine each box carefully, reading the sizes, looking at the designs with serious concentration. "Pick any ones you want," he said. She looked up at him. "Anyone's?" "Anyone's. Even if they're—" She checked a price tag. "Even if they're $30. $30. The fact that she thought that was expensive broke something in Ethan. "Even if they're $100. Pick what you like." Lily's face lit up. She went back to searching, taking her time, trying on 3 different pairs before settling on purple sneakers with laces that sparkled and lights in the sole that flashed when you walked. She stood up and took a few steps, watching her feet light up with each step, and the smile on her face was worth every hour Ethan had spent in that warehouse. "These ones," she said, "but only if you're sure." "I'm sure." "They're not too expensive?" "They're perfect." They also got her new clothes. Jeans that actually fit instead of being 2 sizes too big. Shirts without stains or holes. A winter coat. A real one, puffy and warm, with a hood that had fake fur around the edges. Lily kept touching it like she couldn't believe it was real. Socks. Underwear. A backpack to replace the one with the broken zipper she'd been carrying for 2 years. At the register, the total came to $268. The cashier read it out and glanced at Ethan, probably expecting him to put something back. He'd done that before. Picked out what they needed, then had to choose what they could actually afford at checkout. Not this time. Ethan handed over his card without hesitation. On the bus ride home, Lily wore her new shoes and kept tapping her feet to watch them light up. She sat pressed against Ethan's side, looking out the window at Ashford sliding past. The city looked the same as always, tired buildings, cracked sidewalks, the kind of place that had given up on itself somewhere in the 80s. But today it felt different, like maybe things could change. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was quiet. "Yeah? Is your new job going to be hard?" Ethan thought about Grace Winter's face. The files full of people's secrets. The world he'd just stepped back into. "Probably. Will you still have time for me?" He pulled her closer. "Always." "That's not up for negotiation." She nodded against his shoulder. "Okay, I believe you." Sunday, Ethan prepared. After Lily went to bed, he spread out everything Grace had sent him about Novatech Systems and started reading. The file was thick, printed documents, USB drive with digital files, photographs of key players, the kind of intelligence package he used to get before operations. Different context, same principle. Novatech had been founded 16 years ago by Catherine Pierce, who'd left a comfortable engineering job at a major tech firm to build something of her own. Started in her garage, the whole cliché startup story. But she'd been smart about it. Found a niche in enterprise software solutions, built a product that actually worked, grew steadily without taking on too much debt. The company was now worth somewhere around $800 million. Employed 300 people. Had contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Should have been a success story. Instead, it was tearing itself apart. The board was split down the middle. Half wanted to accept Vanguard Capital's takeover offer, take the money, cash out, move on. The other half believed Catherine could still turn things around if given time, and while they fought, the company was hemorrhaging talent and market share. Vanguard had already acquired 12% of Novatech's shares. publicly available purchases, all legal. But they were pushing for more. If they hit 20%, they could force a special shareholder meeting. At that meeting, they could push out Catherine and install their own management. Ethan studied the key players. Catherine Pierce herself, MIT graduate, engineer turned CEO, by all accounts brilliant but struggling to maintain control. David Morse, the CFO, accounting background, good with numbers but carrying gambling debts that shouldn't exist on his salary. James Sullivan, VP of engineering, talented but arrogant, having an affair with someone in marketing. Christine Valdez, head of sales, driving revenue but fighting a messy custody battle and relying too heavily on prescription medication to cope. Everyone had pressure points. Everyone had vulnerabilities. The file also included communication patterns, email metadata, meeting schedules. Grace had done her homework, or someone had. This level of detail wasn't normal due diligence. This was intelligence work. Ethan closed the file around 2 in the morning and sat in the dark kitchen, thinking. He told himself he was done with this, with reading people's secrets, finding their weaknesses, using information as a weapon. He'd wanted to be normal, safe, just a father raising his daughter. But normal didn't pay the bills, and safe didn't give Lily new shoes. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus Webb. You ready for tomorrow? Ethan typed back. As ready as I'll get. Remember, you're nobody. Boring consultant nobody cares about. That's your advantage. I remember how to be invisible. Good. Because once they see you, everything gets harder. Stay small until you're ready to move. What if I don't want to move? What if I just want to do the job and get out? There was a long pause, then, you never were good at lying to yourself. Ethan turned off his phone and went to the couch, lay there staring at shadows on the ceiling until sleep finally came. Monday morning arrived cold and sharp. Ethan got Lily ready for school, made her breakfast, actual eggs and toast, not just peanut butter, and walked her to the bus stop. She wore her new coat and lit-up shoes, and the other kids actually noticed. Cool shoes, one girl said. Lily beamed. Thanks, my dad got them for me. Ethan felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or just the relief of not being ashamed for once. After Lily's bus left, he took his own bus downtown. The Ashford Tower looked different now. Less intimidating. More like a place he was supposed to be. The security guards waved him through. Grace must have updated their system. And Ethan rode the elevator to the 32nd floor. The Meridian offices were exactly as he remembered. All glass and clean lines and expensive furniture that looked uncomfortable. Grace met him at reception, dressed in another suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent used to be. Mr. Cole? Right on time. Seemed important. Everything here is important. She led him down a hallway to a small office. Desk, 2 chairs, window overlooking the parking garage. No nameplate on the door. This is your space. When you're not at Novatech, you work from here. Computer's set up. Credentials are in the folder on the desk. Ethan looked around. The office was deliberately bland. Nothing personal, nothing memorable. The kind of space that could belong to anyone. Not much here. You're not here to decorate. You're here to work. Grace closed the door and her expression shifted. Got more serious. Before you go to Novatech, we need to be clear about something. What Meridian does exists in gray areas. We gather information that isn't technically illegal to gather, but isn't exactly clean either. We influence outcomes without leaving fingerprints. We solve problems clients can't solve themselves because of legal or ethical constraints. You're describing corporate espionage. I'm describing strategic intelligence. There's a difference. Which is? Intent. We're not stealing trade secrets. We're not sabotaging competitors. We're protecting clients from internal threats, identifying bad actors before they can do more damage, preventing disasters instead of cleaning them up. Grace leaned against the desk. But yes, the methods can be questionable. If that's a problem for you, say so now. Ethan thought about Lily's new coat, the rent he'd paid, the signing bonus sitting in his account. I'm not walking away. Good, because Catherine Pierce is expecting you at Novatech this afternoon. 2 o'clock. You're being introduced as an operational efficiency consultant, brought in to assess workflow and make recommendations. She handed him a badge. Boring, bureaucratic, the kind of thing companies do when they want to look proactive without actually changing anything. Who knows what I'm really doing? Catherine, her CFO, David Morse, and the board chairman, Richard Caldwell. Everyone else thinks you're exactly what you appear to be, a mid-level consultant who asks annoying questions and writes reports nobody reads. What's my background story? You worked for a boutique consulting firm that Meridian sometimes partners with. You've done operational assessments for logistics and manufacturing companies. You're competent but not threatening. You blend in. Grace pulled a file from the desk. This has your complete cover. Memorize it. If anyone digs into your background, they'll find exactly what we want them to find. Ethan opened the file. Fake job history, fake references, fake projects. All of it would hold up to basic scrutiny. You've done this before. Many times. The key is consistency. Don't embellish. Don't try to sound more important than you are. Be exactly as boring as your cover story suggests. What am I looking for at Novatech? Anything that doesn't fit. People who seem nervous when they shouldn't be. Conversations that stop when you enter a room. Financial irregularities. Communication patterns that feel wrong. Grace's eyes locked on his. You used to do this for a living. You know what betrayal looks like. Find it, document it, report back. And then what? Then we decide how to handle it. Sometimes that means going to the board. Sometimes it means quiet terminations. Sometimes it means burning everything down and starting over. She stood. You have 3 weeks, maybe 4. After that, Vanguard forces a shareholder vote and it's over. Ethan absorbed that timeline. 3 weeks to find a traitor in a company of 300 people. That's not much time. It's what we have. Use it well. He spent the next 2 hours memorizing his cover story and reviewing the Novatech file one more time. At 1:30, he took a cab to Novatech's headquarters. The building was in the tech corridor, all glass and modern architecture. The lobby tried too hard to look creative. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, a reception desk made from what looked like reclaimed wood. Young people moved through the space with the particular energy of a company that was either thriving or pretending to. Ethan Cole, he told the receptionist. I'm here for Catherine Pierce. She checked her computer, made a call, then smiled. Someone will be right down. Ethan waited, observing. Groups of employees talking in low voices, people carrying laptops and coffee cups with the Novatech logo, a wall covered in press clippings about the company's growth and success. It all looked good on the surface. But Ethan had learned a long time ago that surfaces lied. A woman emerged from the elevators. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a blazer. She moved with efficiency, no wasted motion. Mr. Cole? I'm Amanda Ross, Catherine's assistant. She's just finishing a call. I'll take you up. The elevator was silent, except for soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. Amanda didn't make small talk, which Ethan appreciated. They emerged on the 4th floor into an open office plan. No cubicles, just long tables where people worked on laptops with headphones on. The design was supposed to encourage collaboration. Mostly it just looked like everyone was trying to create their own bubble of privacy in a space that had none. Catherine Pierce's office was in the corner, glass-walled so everyone could see in but couldn't hear. She stood when Ethan entered, extending her hand. She was maybe 50, with short gray hair she hadn't bothered to dye and eyes that assessed him in about 3 seconds. Mr. Cole, Grace speaks highly of you. Grace exaggerates. She doesn't. Not about things that matter. Catherine gestured to a chair. I assume she briefed you on the situation. She gave me an overview, but I'd like to hear it from you. Catherine sat behind her desk and was quiet for a moment, like she was deciding how much to say. Then she started talking. I built this company from nothing. 16 years ago, I was working in my garage writing code and cold calling potential clients. Now we employ 300 people and generate $200 million in annual revenue. This company is my life's work. And now it's falling apart. Yes. The word came out hard. I made mistakes. Hired the wrong people, trusted when I shouldn't have, got focused on growth instead of stability. Now the board is divided. Half my executives are looking for exit strategies, and Vanguard is circling like sharks. What makes you think someone inside is helping them? Because information keeps leaking. Board discussions that should be confidential end up in the Wall Street Journal. Financial projections that should be protected show up in Vanguard's pitch materials. Someone is feeding them everything they need to build their case. Ethan leaned back. Could be multiple people. I know. That's the problem. I don't know who to trust anymore. Half my team smiles to my face, and I can feel them plotting behind my back. The other half is either too scared to act or too incompetent to help. Then why not fire everyone and rebuild? Catherine's laugh was bitter. Because that's exactly what Vanguard wants me to do. They'll point to it as evidence I've lost control. The board will panic, force me out, and hand the company over to whoever promises them the biggest return. No, I need proof first. Concrete evidence of who's betraying me. Then I can act without looking paranoid or desperate. Ethan studied her. Catherine Pierce wasn't paranoid. She was cornered. And cornered people made mistakes. How much time do we have? 3 weeks, maybe 4 if we're lucky. Vanguard's pushing for a special shareholder meeting. If they get 20% of the shares, they can force it. And they're close. What happens if they succeed? They'll gut Novatech, fire most of the staff, sell our IP to the highest bidder, strip everything valuable, and leave the rest to rot. It's what they do. Catherine's jaw tightened. I won't let that happen. I didn't build this company for 16 years just to watch private equity vultures pick it apart. Even if stopping them means making enemies? I already have enemies, Mr. Cole. I'm just trying to figure out which ones are sitting in my own building. Ethan nodded slowly. I'll need access to everything. Financial records, communication logs, security footage. And I need to move around without raising suspicion. Done. Amanda will set you up with whatever you need. As far as everyone else knows, you're here to assess operational efficiency and make recommendations for cost savings. Boring consultant work. Nobody will pay attention to you. That's the idea. Catherine stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Grace said you used to do intelligence work. Military? Something like that. Good. Because what I need isn't consulting, it's warfare. Corporate warfare, but still warfare. She held his gaze. I hope you remember how to fight. Ethan thought about all the years he'd spent trying to forget. I remember. Amanda showed him to a desk on the second floor, in the operations department. It was surrounded by people who managed supply chains and vendor contracts, the invisible machinery that kept the company running. Boring work. The kind of thing no one paid attention to unless something broke. Perfect. You'll be working with Michael Chen, Amanda said. He's director of operations. He knows you're here to assess efficiency, but he's not happy about it. Fair warning, Michael thinks consultants are parasites. Noted. If you need anything, my extension is on your desk phone. Catherine wants regular updates, but keep them discreet. Use your personal cell, not company lines. After Amanda left, Ethan sat at the desk and looked around. The operations department was quieter than the tech floors. People worked with their heads down, occasionally talking in low voices about shipment delays and inventory issues. No one glanced his way. He was already invisible. Michael Chen appeared around 3. He was 40, maybe 45, Chinese-American, with the permanent scowl of someone who spent all day solving other people's problems. You're the consultant. Ethan Cole. Yeah, I got the memo from Catherine's office. Michael dropped a thick folder on the desk. Here's everything you need. Process documentation, workflow diagrams, efficiency metrics from the last 2 years. Knock yourself out. You don't seem thrilled I'm here, because you're not going to find anything we haven't already identified. We run a tight operation, but every time the board gets nervous, they bring in consultants to justify their hand-wringing. You'll spend 3 weeks analyzing data that won't tell you anything new, write a report nobody will read, and collect your check. Meanwhile, we'll keep doing the actual work. Ethan let the hostility wash over him. I'll try to stay out of your way. Appreciate it. Michael walked off without another word. Ethan opened the folder and started reading. Operations manuals, vendor contracts, shipping schedules, standard stuff. But buried in the documentation were small irregularities, purchase orders that didn't quite match delivery records, shipments that went to addresses not in the system. Nothing obvious, nothing that would raise alarms, but wrong enough to notice if you were looking. He spent the rest of the afternoon taking notes and watching people. Who talked to who seemed stressed, who seemed too relaxed. At 5:30, most of the department cleared out. Ethan stayed, pretending to work while observing the patterns. At 6, his phone buzzed. Text from Grace. How was day 1? Ethan typed. Complicated. Found some irregularities in operations. Need to access communication logs. Check your email. Credentials are waiting. He pulled up his laptop and found the access waiting. Grace wasn't exaggerating about being thorough. Ethan logged into Novatech's internal systems and started pulling communication data, emails, instant messages, meeting invites. The volume was staggering, thousands of messages every day, most of them routine business. But Ethan wasn't looking for obvious betrayals. He was looking for patterns. Who communicated with who, when, how often? What changed before and after key decisions? 2 hours later, something caught his attention. James Sullivan, the VP of Engineering, had been sending messages to an external email address. Not frequently, once every 2 weeks or so. But the timing was interesting. Each message went out within 48 hours of a board meeting. Ethan pulled up the messages themselves. They were encrypted. Not corporate encryption, something personal. Someone had gone to effort to hide these conversations. He made a note and kept digging. Found similar patterns with 2 other executives. Christine Valdez sending encrypted messages to a different external address. David Morse, the CFO, making calls to numbers that weren't in the company directory. Nothing concrete yet. But the outline of something was starting to emerge. At 8:30, the building was nearly empty. Just cleaning crews and a few engineers pulling all-nighters. Ethan was about to pack up when his phone rang. The school's number. His stomach dropped. Hello? Mr. Cole? The voice was female, professional, but tight with tension. This is Principal Matthews at Riverside Elementary. There's been an incident involving your daughter. Ethan was already standing, grabbing his jacket. What happened? Is she hurt? Lily's fine, but another student was injured during afternoon recess, and Lily was involved. We need you to come in tomorrow morning to discuss it. Injured how? The other child has a broken nose. According to multiple witnesses, Lily pushed him off the playground equipment. Ethan's mind went blank for a second. Lily. His daughter who cried when she saw dead birds on the sidewalk, who apologized to furniture when she bumped into it. Are you certain it was her? We have statements from 4 different students, and Lily herself admitted to pushing him. Why? What happened? That's what we need to discuss. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, my office. Mrs. Chen has already picked Lily up, but she's quite upset. I'll be there. The line went dead. Ethan stood there for a moment, phone in his hand, trying to process what he'd just heard. Then he grabbed his things and headed for the exit, nearly running. The bus ride back to Mercer Street felt like it took hours. When Ethan finally burst into the apartment building and climbed the stairs, Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway with Lily sitting on the floor beside her. His daughter's face was blotchy from crying. Her new coat was dirty. She looked up when she saw him, and fresh tears spilled over. Daddy, I'm sorry. Ethan dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms. It's okay. Just tell me what happened. Mrs. Chen quietly led herself into her own apartment, giving them privacy. Ethan carried Lily into their place and sat her on the couch. Talk to me, sweetheart. Why did you push that boy? Lily's voice was so small he had to lean in to hear it. Tommy. He wouldn't stop saying mean things. What things? He said, she hiccuped. He said you're a loser, that we're poor and pathetic, that Mommy left because she didn't want to be around us anymore. Ethan felt something white-hot flash through his chest. Rage. Pure and simple. Some 6-year-old kid parroting garbage he'd heard from his parents, hurting Lily because he could. And you told him to stop? I did. I told him 3 times, but he just laughed and kept saying it, and then Lily's face crumpled. And then he said Mommy probably crashed the car on purpose to get away from us. Ethan's hands clenched. He forced them to relax. So you pushed him. I didn't mean to hurt him. I just wanted him to stop. I didn't know he'd fall that hard. She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes, terrified. Am I in big trouble? Not with me, but we have to go talk to Principal Matthews tomorrow. Am I going to get expelled? No, I won't let that happen. Tommy's mom is really mad. She was yelling at Mrs. Patterson. Of course she was. Probably the same mother who'd been gossiping about Lily's clothes. Ethan pulled his daughter close again and held her while she cried herself out. When the tears finally stopped, he pulled back and looked at her seriously. Listen to me. What Tommy said was cruel and wrong, but pushing him wasn't the right answer. You understand that? Lily nodded. But I also understand why you did it. And I'm not angry with you. I'm angry at that boy and his family for teaching him to be like that. Principal Matthews said violence is never okay. She's right, but sometimes people push you until you break, and breaking doesn't make you bad. It just makes you human. Lily absorbed that. What's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to talk to Principal Matthews and Tommy's parents, and we're going to figure this out. Will you have to miss work? Yes, but that's okay. You're more important than work. She leaned against him, exhausted. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know, it's okay. After Lily fell asleep, Ethan sat in the kitchen with his laptop open. The encrypted messages from James Sullivan glowed on the screen. The patterns that didn't quite fit, a company tearing itself apart while he tried to keep his own life from doing the same. His phone buzzed. Marcus Webb. Heard you started today. How's it going? Ethan typed, complicated. My daughter broke another kid's nose at school. Jesus. She okay? She's upset. The kid had it coming. They usually do. You handling it? Have to. Meeting with the principal tomorrow. There was a pause, then. Watch yourself at Novatech. Catherine Pierce isn't telling you everything. Nobody ever does. What do you know? Just that Meridian doesn't get called in for simple corporate espionage. Whatever's happening at Novatech is bigger than a hostile takeover. Keep your eyes open. Always do. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be harder than today. Ethan closed the laptop and turned off the lights, lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, thinking about Lily's tears and Tommy's broken nose, and the choice he'd made to take this job. In the bedroom, Lily shifted in her sleep, making a small sound. Ethan closed his eyes and tried not to think about how quickly everything was getting complicated. But sleep didn't come easy. It never did anymore. Principal Matthews' office smelled like stale coffee and institutional carpet cleaner. The walls were decorated with motivational posters that had probably been there since the 90s. Children holding hands under rainbows, eagles soaring over mountains, all of it designed to inspire, but mostly just depressing. Ethan sat in a chair built for someone half his size, knees nearly touching the desk, while Matthews reviewed paperwork with the tired expression of someone who'd had this conversation too many times. Mr. Cole, I want to be clear about the severity of this situation. Tommy Henderson required medical attention. His nose is broken. His parents are very upset and they're considering legal action. Ethan kept his voice level, controlled. Did anyone ask my daughter why she pushed him? Matthews looked up from the paperwork. We spoke to several witnesses. The children said Tommy was teasing Lily. Teasing. Ethan let the words sit there between them. What exactly was he saying to her? The specifics aren't really relevant to the incident itself. They're completely relevant. My daughter has been in this school for 2 years. She's never been in a fight, never raised her hand to another student, never even raised her voice that I know of. So if she pushed another kid hard enough to break his nose, something provoked her. And I need to know what. Matthews shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Cole, I understand you're defensive about your daughter, but we have a zero-tolerance policy regarding physical violence. Regardless of provocation, what's your policy on psychological abuse? Because from what Lily told me, Tommy wasn't just teasing. He was telling her that her dead mother killed herself to get away from us, that we're pathetic and poor, and that's why her mom is gone. Ethan's voice stayed calm, but something in his eyes changed. Is that covered under your bullying policy, Principal Matthews, or is that just teasing? The principal's face went tight. She set down her pen. Tommy said that specifically about suicide? According to Lily, yes, multiple times, after she asked him to stop. I wasn't aware of the exact nature of the comments. Well, now you are. So I'll ask again. Does that change how you're handling this? Matthews was quiet for a long moment, staring at the paperwork like it might provide answers. Then she picked up her phone and pressed a button. Janet, please send in the Hendersons. The door opened and they entered like they owned the place. Mr. Henderson was mid-40s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly salary used to be, with a tan that came from golf courses and Caribbean vacations. Mrs. Henderson was younger by maybe 10 years, blonde hair perfect, dressed like she was on her way to a charity luncheon. She saw Ethan and her expression immediately curdled. This is him? Her voice was sharp, entitled. The father who can't control his violent daughter? Ethan stood slowly. My name is Ethan Cole, and you might want to check your facts before you start throwing accusations around. I don't need to check anything. Your daughter attacked my son, broke his nose. We want her expelled from this school immediately." "Mrs. Henderson," Principal Matthews interrupted, "let's all sit down and discuss this rationally."
"There's nothing to discuss." Mrs. Henderson remained standing. "That little girl is a danger to other students. She attacked Tommy without any provocation whatsoever. If the school won't remove her, we'll be filing a police report and pursuing legal action." "Without provocation." Ethan kept his voice quiet, which somehow made it more dangerous. "Is that what your son told you?" "Tommy is a good boy. He would never do anything to deserve being assaulted."
"Really? Because according to multiple witnesses, your good boy spent 20 minutes telling my 6-year-old daughter that her dead mother committed suicide to escape her, that we're poor trash, that she's pathetic." Ethan took a step closer. "Does that sound like a good boy to you?" Mr. Henderson finally spoke up. "Now hold on. Tommy would never say something like that." "He did. And he said it because he heard it somewhere. Kids that age don't come up with that kind of cruelty on their own. They learn it." "Are you implying we taught our son to bully other children?" Mrs. Henderson's voice went up an octave. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it directly. Your son is cruel because you've made him that way. And instead of addressing that, you're here demanding that the victim be punished." "Victim?" Mrs. Henderson laughed, sharp and ugly. "Your daughter is not a victim. She's violent and unstable, which isn't surprising given her home situation. Single father, clearly struggling financially, no stable parental figure. That kind of chaos creates damaged children." Ethan felt something cold and familiar settle in his chest. The feeling he used to get before missions went sideways, before he had to make decisions that kept people awake at night. "You should stop talking." "Excuse me? I said you should stop, before you say something that can't be taken back. Is that a threat?" "It's advice. Free advice, which is more than you deserve." Mr. Henderson stood up, puffing his chest out. "Do you know who I am? I sit on the school board. I'm on the hospital foundation. I have connections throughout this city. You're nobody. A warehouse worker living in a slum, raising a troubled child. You think you can threaten us?" Ethan smiled. It wasn't friendly. "You're right. I am nobody, which means I have absolutely nothing to lose. You, on the other hand, have a reputation to maintain, a social position to protect, and I'm guessing that position wouldn't survive if the full story came out. Rich family's son bullying a grieving child, parents enabling and defending it, single father fighting back. That's a narrative that plays really well on the news, don't you think? You wouldn't dare. Try me. Press charges. Make this public, and I'll make sure every outlet in Ashford knows exactly what your son said and how you responded. I'll give interviews, I'll take Lily on camera, tears and all, and let her tell her story. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to show your face at the country club." Mrs. Henderson's face went red. "How dare you threaten us? Enough!" Principal Matthews stood, her voice cutting through the room. "Everyone sit down, right now." They sat. Matthews looked at each of them with the expression of someone who'd dealt with too many entitled parents and was fresh out of patience. Then she focused on the Hendersons. "I've reviewed all the witness statements from yesterday's incident. While Lily's physical response was absolutely unacceptable and will be addressed, Tommy's verbal harassment was equally problematic. According to 4 separate students, he made repeated comments about Lily's deceased mother, mocked their financial situation, and continued after being asked multiple times to stop. "That's just children being children," Mr. Henderson said. "Boys tease. It's normal. Telling a child her mother killed herself to escape her is not normal teasing, Mr. Henderson. It's bullying. And under our anti-bullying policies, it carries serious consequences. This is ridiculous. My son is the one with a broken nose, and Lily is the one who was emotionally traumatized to the point of physical response." Matthews sat back down. "Both students will face consequences. Lily will be suspended for 3 days for physical violence. Tommy will receive the same suspension for sustained verbal harassment and bullying." Mrs. Henderson's mouth fell open. "The same punishment? Are you insane? My son is the victim here. Your son participated in creating the situation that led to the violence. He is not blameless." "We'll go over your head. The superintendent is a personal friend of ours. Do what you feel is necessary, but the facts won't change, and neither will my decision." Matthews folded her hands on the desk. "Both children will also be required to attend counseling sessions before returning to class. Lily,
to address appropriate conflict resolution, Tommy to address his bullying behavior. I will not have my son labeled as a bully.
Then perhaps you should have taught him not to behave like one. The room went silent. Mr. Henderson's face was purple. Mrs. Henderson looked like she was about to start throwing things. Finally, Mr. Henderson spoke through clenched teeth. We'll be consulting our attorney about this, and we will be pressing charges against the Cole family. That's your right, Matthews said. But I should inform you that if you do, the school will cooperate fully with any investigation. That means providing all witness statements regarding exactly what Tommy said to provoke the incident. Every word will be documented and available for the court. The Hendersons looked at each other. Ethan could see them doing the calculation, weighing their options, realizing that taking this public might not go the way they wanted. We need to discuss this, Mr. Henderson said finally, privately. Take all the time you need, but understand that my decision stands regardless. Matthews looked at Ethan. Mr. Cole, could you wait outside for a moment? Ethan nodded and left. He stood in the hallway, watching through the window as the Hendersons argued with each other in harsh whispers. 5 minutes later, they stormed out without looking at him. Matthews called him back in. They've decided not to press charges. For now. But Mr. Henderson made it clear they'll be watching Lily very closely, and any future incidents will result in legal action. There won't be future incidents, not for my daughter. I believe that. Lily is a good kid, Mr. Cole. I've seen her in this school for 2 years and never had a single problem. What Tommy said to her was cruel and completely inappropriate. I'm sorry I didn't know the full extent before this meeting. Will the suspension go on her permanent record? It has to be documented, yes, but I'll include full context about the provocation. It won't affect her future, I promise you that. And honestly, Matthews lowered her voice. Between us, Tommy Henderson has been a problem for a while. His parents refuse to see it, but he's a bully. Always has been. I'm glad we finally have documentation of it. Ethan felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The Hendersons have influence in this district. They might try to make trouble for you through other channels. Be careful. I can handle them. Matthews studied him for a moment. I believe you can. You have that look about you. What look? Like someone who's seen worse than entitled parents and knows how to deal with it. She smiled slightly. Whatever you did before the warehouse, Mr. Cole, it wasn't ordinary. Ethan didn't respond to that. He just nodded and left. Lily was waiting outside the office with Mrs. Chen, looking small and terrified. When she saw him, she jumped up. Am I expelled? No, sweetheart. 3-day suspension, starting today. What about Tommy? He got the same thing, and he has to go to counseling for bullying. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? He got in trouble too? He did. What he said to you was wrong, and Principal Matthews made sure everyone knows it. Mrs. Chen put a hand on Lily's shoulder. I'll watch her while you work. No charge. I'll pay you. No, this time is free. Her tone left zero room for argument. She's a good girl who made a mistake. I help because I want to, not for money. Ethan wanted to argue, but he could see it was pointless. Thank you. He crouched down to Lily's level. You're going to stay with Mrs. Chen for the next few days while I work. You'll behave yourself, do any homework she gives you, and no more pushing people off playground equipment. Understood? Understood. Lily hugged him hard. I'm really sorry, Daddy. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough. You have to learn from this. Violence isn't the answer, even when people are cruel. You find other ways to handle it. Like what? Like telling a teacher. Like walking away. Like knowing that people who say mean things are usually just trying to make themselves feel better because they're hurting inside. Lily pulled back and looked at him seriously. Is Tommy hurting inside? Probably. Happy people don't need to hurt others. She absorbed that, nodding slowly. Then she hugged him again and went with Mrs. Chen. Ethan watched them go, then headed for the bus stop. His phone was already buzzing. Multiple texts from Grace Winters, each one more insistent than the last. He'd sent her a message earlier about the school situation, but apparently that hadn't satisfied her. He texted back, handled, on my way now. The Novatech offices felt different when Ethan arrived at 10:30. The energy had changed. People were moving faster, talking in tighter clusters, voices pitched low. Something had happened. Amanda Ross intercepted him at the elevator before he could even press the button. You need to come with me, right now. What's going on? Catherine will explain. 4th floor. They rode up in tense silence. Amanda's jaw was tight, her posture rigid. Whatever had happened, it was bad. Catherine's office door was closed, blinds drawn, unusual for someone who usually kept everything transparent. Amanda knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. Catherine was there with David Morse and Richard Caldwell. All three looked like they'd been awake for 36 hours straight. Catherine's hair was disheveled, her eyes red. David was pacing, running his hands through his hair repeatedly. Richard sat perfectly still, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the armrest. Shut the door, Catherine said. Amanda obeyed and left. Catherine gestured to a chair. Sit. Ethan sat. What happened? Vanguard. David's voice was hoarse. They just announced they've acquired 18% of our shares. Ethan felt his stomach drop. 18? They were at 12 yesterday. They moved overnight, bought up every small shareholder they could find, paid premium prices, chucked up to 20, 30% above market value in some cases. Catherine's hands were shaking. She clenched them to make it stop. Someone gave them a complete breakdown of our shareholder structure. Names, contact information, how much each person owned, what price they'd be willing to accept. Vanguard had a roadmap. Which means the leak isn't just passing along board minutes, Richard said. His voice was quiet, controlled, but rage burned underneath. It's strategic intelligence. Someone is actively helping them plan the takeover. They're 2% away from forcing a shareholder vote, David added. 2%. They could get that in days. Ethan processed this quickly. How did they move that fast without anyone noticing?
They used multiple shell companies, Catherine said. Made the purchases look unrelated until it was too late. By the time we realized what was happening, it was done. This is more than a leak, Ethan said slowly. This is coordination. Someone inside isn't just selling information. They're actively working with Vanguard to destroy you. Catherine stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city. Grace said you found something yesterday. Encrypted communications from 3 executives. James Sullivan, Christine Valdez, and David Morse. Ethan glanced at the CFO. No offense. David waved it off. None taken. I know I'm on the list. Gambling debts make me a target. Can you decrypt the messages? Richard asked. Not without physical access to their computers. Email encryption can be broken with the right tools, but it takes time. Faster if I can access the machines directly. How long? Give me an hour alone with each computer, maybe less. Catherine turned back from the window. Do it, tonight. I don't care about the legal implications. I don't care about corporate policy. Get into those offices and find me proof of who's betraying us. Catherine, Richard said carefully, if he gets caught, then we deal with it. But I'm not losing this company because I was too afraid to break some rules. She looked at Ethan. Grace said you used to do intelligence work. She said you were good at it. I was, but that was a different context. The principles are the same, aren't they? Find the target, gather evidence, neutralize the threat. Ethan thought about those words. Neutralize the threat. In his old life, that had meant something very specific, something permanent. What exactly are you asking me to do? Find out who's working with Vanguard. Get me documentation. Then we expose them and cut them out. Catherine's voice was hard. I don't want revenge. I want justice. I want them removed from positions where they can hurt people. And if the evidence leads somewhere you don't expect, what if it's someone you trust? Then I'll deal with it. But I need to know. The not knowing is killing me faster than the takeover. Ethan nodded. I'll need help. Someone to create a distraction while I'm inside. What kind of distraction? Something that pulls security away from the offices, fire alarm maybe, or a false security threat. 10 minutes is all I need. Richard frowned. That's risky. If security reviews the footage afterward, they won't find anything. I know how to move without leaving traces. Ethan pulled out his phone and texted Grace. Need a distraction tonight, midnight. Can you arrange it? Her response came in seconds. Yes. What kind? Fire alarm, 5th floor, needs to last at least 10 minutes. Done. You'll get an email at 11:30 with the exact timing. Ethan looked up. It's arranged. I'll go in tonight after the late shift clears out.
What do you need from us?
Catherine asked. Nothing. Just stay out of the building. If something goes wrong, you need plausible deniability. The meeting ended and Ethan went back to his desk on the second floor. Michael Chen was there, looking even more stressed than usual. Where the hell have you been? Had a family emergency this morning, personal stuff. Yeah, well, we all have personal stuff. It doesn't mean we just disappear. Michael dropped a stack of files on the desk hard enough to make the other workers look up. These are vendor contracts from the last quarter. Review them. Flag anything irregular. Ethan started going through the files methodically. On the surface, they looked normal. Purchase orders for computer equipment, software licenses, office supplies. But he noticed patterns, small inconsistencies in the delivery addresses, invoices that didn't quite match the purchase orders. 3 hours in, he found something concrete. A shipment of high-end computer equipment, servers, actually, expensive ones, sent to an address that wasn't in Novatech's system. The purchase order was signed by Michael Chen himself. Ethan looked up the address. Residential property in one of the expensive suburbs. Big house, probably worth over $1 million. He ran it through public records. The owner was Christine Valdez. Why was Operation shipping server equipment to the head of sales' personal residence? And why wasn't it logged in the normal inventory system? Ethan sat back, thinking. Servers meant data processing, storage, the kind of equipment you'd use if you were running analytics on stolen information or building encrypted communication channels. He photographed the purchase order with his phone, being careful to keep it angled away from the security cameras. Sent it to Grace with a brief message. Found equipment shipment to CV's home address. Server hardware. Not in official logs. Grace's response. Very interesting. That's infrastructure for something bigger than simple leaks. Keep digging. At lunch, Ethan took a walk through the building. He needed to map everything out before tonight. Security camera locations, blind spots, patrol patterns. The third floor where James Sullivan's office was located had fewer cameras than the second. Sullivan's office itself was at the end of a hallway, with a camera covering the main entrance, but none on the side window that faced the stairwell. Perfect. Ethan continued his walk, memorizing everything. The building's security was decent, but not exceptional. Corporate level, designed to keep out random intruders and petty thieves. Not someone who actually knew what they were doing. He grabbed a sandwich from the cafeteria and ate at his desk while reviewing more files. Christine Valdez came down to operations twice during the afternoon, both times looking nervous. She spoke briefly with Michael, glancing around like she was afraid of being overheard. The second time, she handed him something. Looked like a USB drive. Ethan made a note of it. James Sullivan walked past the operations floor once, talking loudly on his phone about engineering deadlines and technical specifications. But Ethan noticed his eyes scanning the room, cataloging who was there, checking for listeners. David Morse appeared in the break room around 3, making coffee with shaking hands. The CFO looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes, tie loosened, shirt wrinkled. When he saw Ethan, he nodded briefly and left without speaking. Everyone was on edge, but that was expected in a company facing a hostile takeover. The question was who was on edge because they were afraid of losing their jobs, and who was on edge because they were afraid of getting caught. At 6, Ethan packed up and headed home. Took the bus, picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment. His daughter seemed better, still subdued but not as fragile as this morning. "How was your day?" Ethan asked while they walked the 10 feet to their own door. "Good. Mrs. Chen taught me how to make dumplings, and we watched a movie about pandas." "Sounds fun." "It was." Lily paused. "Daddy, are you going to work tonight?" Ethan looked at her. "Why do you ask?" "Because you have that look. The one you get when you're worried about something but trying not to show it." 6 years old and already reading him like a book. "I might have to go back to the office for a little while, after you're asleep. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, just some work stuff I need to handle." Lily nodded, accepting this. They made dinner together. Spaghetti with jarred sauce, nothing fancy but filling. Ate while watching a nature documentary. Did the bedtime routine. When Ethan tucked her in, she grabbed his hand. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for standing up for me today, with Tommy's parents." Ethan's throat tightened. "Always, sweetheart. Nobody gets to hurt you and get away with it." "I know." She squeezed his hand.
You're the best dad. After she fell asleep, Ethan sat in the dark living room and pulled out his laptop. He reviewed everything he knew about the three suspects, their backgrounds, their vulnerabilities, the patterns in their behavior. James Sullivan had the encrypted communications. Christine Valdez had unexplained equipment at her house. David Morse had financial desperation. But something felt off. The pieces fit too neatly, too obviously. Ethan thought about the burner phone he'd seen in Sullivan's office yesterday. Unlocked, messages visible, basically screaming to be found. It bothered him. James was smart enough to hide an affair from his wife, smart enough to run a complex engineering department, but not smart enough to password protect evidence of corporate espionage. It felt like a plant, like someone wanted that phone to be found. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus Webb. Heard things are getting intense. You holding up? Ethan typed back. So far. Going into the field tonight. Careful. When people get desperate, they make mistakes, including you. I don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The trick is making them survivable. At 11, Ethan checked on Lily one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, one hand tucked under her cheek, the other clutching the stuffed rabbit Sarah had given her 3 birthdays ago. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll be back soon." Then he left the apartment, locked the door quietly, and headed back to Novatech. The building was mostly dark at 11:30. A few lights on in the upper floors where engineers were grinding through deadlines, but most of the offices were empty. Ethan used his badge at the side entrance. The security guard at the desk, different one than the day shift, barely looked up from his phone. "Forgot something at your desk," Ethan said. "Yeah, okay, sign in." Ethan scribbled a fake signature and headed for the elevators. Took it to the 2nd floor, then used the stairs to reach the 3rd. The hallway was empty, quiet except for the hum of the building's ventilation system. James Sullivan's office was dark. Ethan checked his email on his phone. Grace's message was waiting. Alarm will activate at exactly 12:15 a.m. You'll have 10 minutes before it's resolved. Good luck. Ethan positioned himself in the blind spot near Sullivan's door and waited, checking his watch. The seconds crawled by. His heart rate was elevated, but controlled. This was familiar territory, the waiting before action, the calm before violence. Except this wasn't violence. This was just breaking and entering, corporate espionage. Simple. At 12:15, the fire alarm exploded to life. The sound was deafening, designed to be impossible to ignore. Ethan heard security shouting, boots pounding toward the stairs. He counted to 15, giving them time to clear the floor. Then he moved. Sullivan's door was locked, but Ethan had the bypass tool Marcus had given him years ago. 20 seconds and the lock clicked open. He slipped inside, closed the door, and turned on his phone's flashlight. The office was pristine. Everything organized, labeled, in its place. A single family photo on the desk, Sullivan with his wife and 3 kids, all of them smiling. Perfect family, perfect life, built on lies and probably about to collapse. Ethan sat at the computer and inserted a USB drive, booted from it, bypassing the password protection. The process took 3 minutes. While it ran, he searched the office, filing cabinet in the corner. Locked. Ethan picked it open and started going through files, financial reports, engineering specifications, personnel reviews. And at the very bottom, hidden under a stack of old contracts, a second phone. Burner phone. Cheap prepaid model. Ethan turned it on. No password, stupid or intentional. He scrolled through the messages, all from a contact labeled V, probably Vanguard. The most recent message was from 2 days ago. Final payment on completion. Don't get cold feet now. Ethan photographed every message, every call log, every contact, put the phone back exactly where he'd found it. The computer finished copying its data. He ejected the USB drive, shut down the machine, and made sure everything looked untouched. 7 minutes since the alarm started. He slipped back into the hallway. The alarm was still blaring. Security would be on the 5th floor dealing with the false alert. Ethan took the stairs down to the 2nd floor, walked calmly to his desk, and sat down like he'd been there the whole time. A security guard ran past, talking urgently into his radio. Didn't even glance at Ethan. At 12:26, the alarm cut off. An announcement came over the intercom. False alarm, repeat, false alarm. All personnel may resume normal activities. Ethan waited 15 minutes, then gathered his things and left the building. Nodded to the security guard at the desk. Finally got that report finished. Have a good night. You too, man. On the bus ride home, Ethan reviewed the photos of Sullivan's messages. The evidence was damning. Payments, coordination, specific references to board decisions that Sullivan couldn't have known about unless someone was feeding him information. But it still felt wrong. Too easy. Too obvious. His phone buzzed. Grace. Did you get what you needed? I got something. Not sure if it's what we're looking for. Explain. The evidence against Sullivan is clear, but it's also sloppy. A burner phone with no password, messages that spell everything out. He's either incredibly stupid or someone wants us to think he's the traitor. Grace was quiet for a moment. You think it's a setup? I think it might be. Or it might be real. I can't tell yet. Send me everything you found. I'll have our people analyze it. Already sent. Check your email. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow we dig into Valdez and Morse. Grace, what if this goes deeper than 3 executives? What if the whole board is compromised? Then we burn it all down and start over. But let's confirm what we have first before we start scorching earth. The line went dead. Ethan got home at 1:15. Lily was still asleep, undisturbed. He checked on her, then collapsed on the couch without bothering to change clothes. His mind wouldn't stop turning. Sullivan's messages, Valdez's equipment, Morse's debts, Catherine's desperation, Vanguard moving with surgical precision, and somewhere underneath all of it, a pattern he couldn't quite see yet. Something bigger than a simple corporate takeover. His phone buzzed one more time. Marcus. You still alive? Ethan typed back. Yeah. Mission complete. Good. Now get some sleep. You're going to need it. Ethan closed his eyes and tried. But sleep was slow coming. His thoughts kept drifting between Novatech's secrets and Lily's suspension, between the man he used to be and the man he was trying to become. The lines were blurring, and he wasn't sure that was a good thing. Sleep lasted maybe 3 hours. Ethan woke at 4:30 to his phone vibrating across the coffee table. Grace's name on the screen. He answered with his eyes still closed. Yeah. We analyzed the data you pulled from Sullivan's computer. You were right to be suspicious. Ethan sat up, instantly awake. It's fake? Not fake, but staged. The messages are real, the payments are real, but the timeline doesn't match. Sullivan's been communicating with Vanguard for 6 months. The burner phone you found only has messages from the last 3 weeks. So someone planted it. That's our assessment. Someone wanted you to find evidence against Sullivan, but they gave you the sanitized version. The real operation is buried deeper. Ethan rubbed his face, feeling the stubble that had accumulated. Who has access to Sullivan's office? According to building records, about 40 people. Executives, cleaning staff, IT support. But the phone was hidden well enough that it wouldn't be found during routine cleaning. Someone put it there specifically for you. Which means someone knows I'm investigating. Or they're being cautious, covering their tracks by creating false trails. Grace paused. Either way, you've been made. Be careful going in today. What about Valdez and Morse? We're running analysis on the equipment shipment to Valdez's house. The purchase order looks legitimate, but we're checking if the equipment ever actually arrived. And Morse's gambling debts are real and substantial. He owes over $200,000 to some very unpleasant people. Enough to sell out his company? Enough to do a lot of things. I'm having someone check his recent financial activity. If Vanguard's paying him, there'll be traces. Ethan stood and walked to the window. Outside, Ashford was still dark, just a few streetlights cutting through the November cold. Grace, what if we're looking at this wrong? What if Sullivan, Valdez, and Morse aren't the primary targets? What if they're just noise? Explain. Think about it. 3 executives, 3 obvious vulnerabilities, 3 separate trails of evidence. It's too neat. If I were running this operation, I'd use them as cover while the real work happened somewhere else. Grace was quiet for a moment. Who's the real target? I don't know yet, but whoever's actually running this is smart enough to create multiple false leads. They're not going to be obvious. Then stop chasing the obvious. Find who benefits most from Novatech's collapse besides Vanguard. That's a long list. Narrow it down. And Ethan, watch your back today. If someone's setting traps, you're already in the maze. The line went dead. Ethan made coffee and sat in the dark kitchen, thinking. His mind mapped out the players like he used to map out hostile territory. Catherine Pierce, CEO, founder, desperate to save her company. Richard Caldwell, board chairman, old money, calculating. David Morse, CFO, gambling addict, drowning in debt. James Sullivan, VP of engineering, affair, expensive lifestyle. Christine Valdez, head of sales, custody battle, prescription drug problem. And then there were the board members he hadn't focused on yet. 7 people who voted on Novatech's future. 7 people who stood to gain or lose fortunes depending on which way the company went. At 6, Lily woke up. Ethan heard her moving around in the bedroom. Then she appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep. You want pancakes?" Her face lit up. "Really?" They made breakfast together, Lily standing on a chair to help stir the batter. The normalcy of it felt surreal after the night he'd had. Breaking into offices, copying encrypted files, setting up false fire alarms. And now here he was, making pancakes with his 6-year-old daughter like he was a regular father with a regular job. "Daddy?" Lily poured syrup carefully on her stack. "When can I go back to school?" 2 more days. Then you go back on Thursday. What if Tommy's still mean to me?" "He won't be. He's been suspended too, remember? And he has to go to counseling. Principal Matthews made sure he knows what he did was wrong." Lily absorbed this while chewing. "Do you think he'll apologize?" "I don't know. Some people don't apologize even when they should." "Why not?" "Because saying sorry means admitting you were wrong. And some people can't handle that." She nodded like this made sense. Mrs. Chen says holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Mrs. Chen is very wise. "Are you holding on to anger, Daddy?" The question caught him off guard. Ethan looked at his daughter, 6 years old, purple sneakers with lights, already seeing through him like glass. "Maybe a little." "About Mommy?" "About a lot of things, but I'm working on it." "Okay." Lily went back to her pancakes, apparently satisfied with this answer. At 7:30, Ethan walked Lily to Mrs. Chen's apartment. The older woman answered in her usual cardigan, smiling at Lily and giving Ethan a knowing look that said she understood more than he'd told her. "I'll keep her busy today," Mrs. Chen said. "We're going to make soup and practice her reading." "Thank you. I should be home by 6. "Take your time. She's safe here." Ethan took the bus to Novatech, watching the city wake up around him. People heading to jobs they probably hated, living lives they probably didn't choose, making compromises they probably regretted. He used to judge that, used to think he was different, special, above the mundane struggles of normal people. Now he was just another one of them. Maybe he always had been. The Novatech building felt different the moment he walked in. Security was tighter, 2 guards at the desk instead of 1, both of them actually checking badges instead of just waving people through. The guard who scanned Ethan's badge took longer than necessary, studying his face before nodding him through. "Have a good day, Mr. Cole." "You too." Ethan took the elevator to the 2nd floor. The operations department was already busy despite the early hour. Michael Chen was at his desk, looking even more exhausted than yesterday. When he saw Ethan, he stood up and gestured to the conference room. "We need to talk, now." They went into the small conference room and Michael closed the door. Turned to face Ethan with his arms crossed. "Who are you really?" "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know what a real consultant looks like, and you're not it." Michael stepped closer. "You don't ask the right questions. You don't follow up on the things consultants care about. You spend more time watching people than analyzing processes. So I'll ask again. Who are you really?" Ethan made a decision. Lying would only make this worse. "I'm exactly who I said I am. But you're right that I'm not just here to assess efficiency." "What are you here for?" "To find who's leaking information to Vanguard." Michael's expression shifted from suspicion to surprise to something like relief. "Catherine knows about this?" "She hired me." "Through Meridian?" "Yes." Michael sat down heavily in one of the conference room chairs, ran his hands through his hair. "Thank God. I thought I was losing my mind." "What do you mean?" Things have been disappearing, files mostly, digital and physical. I'll put together a report, file it properly, and then a week later it's gone from the system. Or purchase orders I never approved showing up in the logs. I've been trying to track it, but every time I get close, the trail disappears. Ethan sat across from him. How long has this been happening? 6 months, maybe longer. I didn't notice at first because the changes were small. A purchase order here, a shipment there. But it's been escalating. The equipment shipment to Christine Valdez's house. Did you actually authorize that? Michael frowned. What shipment? Ethan pulled out his phone and showed him the photo of the purchase order. Michael studied it, his frown deepening. That's my signature, but I never signed this, and those aren't our standard vendors. Can you check if the equipment was actually delivered? Michael pulled out his laptop and started typing. According to the system, it was delivered 3 weeks ago, signed for by someone named Alex Reyes. Who's that? No idea. We don't have anyone by that name working here. Ethan felt pieces clicking together. Someone's using your department to move equipment without anyone noticing. They're forging your signatures, creating fake delivery confirmations, and covering their tracks. But why? What's the equipment for? That's what I need to find out. Can you pull up all the unusual shipments from the last 6 months? Michael spent 20 minutes pulling records. By the end, they had a list of 15 suspicious shipments, all of them to residential addresses, all signed by people who didn't exist in Novatech's employee database, and all of them approved with Michael's forged signature. This is bad, Michael said. If Catherine finds out my department's been compromised like this, she already knows something's wrong. That's why I'm here. Ethan photographed the records. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. If whoever's doing this finds out we're onto them, they'll just change tactics. What do I do? Keep running your department normally, but if you notice anything else unusual, let me know immediately. Ethan gave him a number. This is my personal cell. Don't use company lines. Michael nodded, looking shaken. Are we going to lose the company? Not if I can help it. They left the conference room separately. Ethan went back to his desk and sent everything to Grace with a detailed explanation. Her response came back fast. This is bigger than we thought. Someone's building infrastructure for something. Find out what. The rest of the morning, Ethan worked through vendor files while watching the office dynamics. Christine Valdez came down to operations 3 times, each visit brief and tense. She spoke to Michael quietly, exchanged what looked like USB drives, and left quickly. The 3rd time, Ethan followed her. She took the elevator to the 4th floor. Ethan took the stairs and arrived in time to see her entering Catherine's office. The blinds were open. He could see Catherine, David Morse, and Richard Caldwell already inside. Christine closed the door and the blinds came down. Emergency meeting. Something had happened. Ethan's phone buzzed. Amanda Ross. Catherine wants to see you, 4th floor, now. He took the elevator up. Amanda was waiting outside Catherine's office, looking pale. They're waiting. Inside, the tension was thick enough to cut. Catherine stood by the window. David was pacing. Richard sat perfectly still, face unreadable. Christine was in the corner, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. Catherine spoke without preamble. Vanguard just hit 20%. They're calling for a shareholder meeting in 2 weeks. Ethan felt the deadline slam shut. How did they get the last 2%? They bought out Thomas Kellerman. He owned 3% and refused to sell for months. This morning he called and said he changed his mind. Catherine's voice was hollow. They paid him double the market value. $20 million for shares worth 10. That's desperation money, Ethan said. They're paying too much, which means they need this to happen fast. Why the rush? Christine asked. If they're willing to pay that much, why not wait and negotiate better terms? Because something's coming, Richard said quietly. Something that changes the equation if they don't move now. Everyone looked at him. The old man stood and walked to Catherine's desk. I've been doing some digging. Vanguard's main fund is over-leveraged. They've made big bets on tech acquisitions that haven't paid off. They need a win to show their investors. Novatech is that win. So they're desperate too, David said. Extremely. Which means they'll do anything to close this deal, including eliminating obstacles. The room went silent. Ethan broke it. What kind of obstacles? The kind that ends up in accidents, or suddenly changes their mind about testifying, or disappears. Richard looked at each of them. I've seen this before. When private equity firms get backed into corners, they don't play by normal rules. Catherine's face had gone pale. You think they'd hurt someone? I think they'll do whatever it takes. And I think everyone in this room should be very careful for the next 2 weeks. Christine made a small sound, almost like a whimper. I have kids. I can't. Then maybe you should tell us what you know, Ethan said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him, then at Christine. What does that mean? Catherine's voice was sharp. It means Christine's been receiving equipment shipments at her home address. Servers, high-end computers, all of it purchased through operations using forged signatures. Ethan kept his eyes on Christine. Want to explain what you're building? Christine's face crumbled. For a moment, Ethan thought she'd deny it. Then she just started crying. I didn't have a choice. They threatened my kids. Catherine moved closer. Who threatened them? I don't know. I never met them. It was all phone calls and anonymous emails. Christine was shaking now. They said if I didn't help, they'd make sure I lost custody. They knew everything about my case, about the prescription medication, about my ex-husband's lawyer. They said they could make it all go away if I just did what they asked. What did they ask you to do? Set up a secure server at my house. They gave me instructions, step by step. I didn't understand half of it, but I followed the directions. The equipment started arriving 3 weeks ago. I assembled it like they told me to. And then what? Ethan asked. Then they gave me a program to run. It connected to Novatech's network remotely, started copying files, emails, everything. Christine looked at Catherine with desperate eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do it, but they had pictures of my kids. They knew where they went to school, what time they got picked up. I couldn't risk it. Jesus Christ, David whispered. Catherine's face had gone from pale to red. How long has this been running? 3 weeks, maybe a little more. Do you know what they've accessed? Everything. Financial records, board communications, client lists, proprietary code. They have a complete copy of Novatech's entire digital infrastructure. The room exploded. Catherine started shouting. David joined in. Richard tried to calm everyone down, but his voice was drowned out. Christine just stood there crying, accepting the fury like she deserved it. Ethan let them vent for 30 seconds, then raised his voice. Stop, all of you. They stopped, mostly from surprise. Yelling doesn't fix this. We need to shut down whatever Christine built and figure out how much damage has been done. He looked at Christine. Is the server still running? She nodded miserably. Can you turn it off without them knowing? I don't know. They're monitoring it remotely. If I just unplug it, they'll know immediately. Then we don't unplug it. We feed it false information. Ethan turned to David. Can your IT team create fake data? Make it look like normal operations while we shut down the real network access? David thought for a moment. Maybe. It'd take time to set up properly. We don't have time. Vanguard's moving too fast. Catherine was pacing now, hands clenched. If they already have everything, shutting down the server won't matter. It matters because they don't know we know, Ethan said. Right now they think their pipeline is secure. If we can control what they see, we can feed them misinformation, make them think they have the advantage while we build our case. Richard nodded slowly. That could work. But we'd need to be careful. One mistake and they'll realize we're onto them. Then we don't make mistakes. Ethan looked at Christine. You're going to keep that server running. You're going to act like nothing's changed. And you're going to do exactly what they tell you until we're ready to move. Can you do that? Christine wiped her eyes. I think so. You need to be sure. If you panic, if you slip up, people could get hurt, including your kids. I can do it, I promise. Catherine was still furious, but she was thinking now instead of just reacting. What about Sullivan? You found evidence he's working with Vanguard, too. I found evidence someone wants us to think he is. The burner phone was planted. The messages are real but incomplete. Ethan pulled out his own phone and showed them the analysis Grace had sent. Sullivan's probably involved, but he's not the main player. He's another piece of cover. Then who is the main player? I don't know yet. But they're smart, careful, and they've been planning this for months. They used Christine because she was vulnerable. They're probably using Sullivan and Morse the same way. But the person actually running this operation is someone we haven't identified yet. Someone inside the company, Richard said, or someone with access to inside information. Either way, they know how we think. They're staying 3 steps ahead. David sat down heavily. This is insane. We're talking about corporate espionage, blackmail, threats against children. This isn't how business works. This is exactly how business works when billions of dollars are at stake, Richard said. Welcome to the real game, David. Catherine turned to Ethan. What do we do now? We keep investigating, keep applying pressure. Christine keeps feeding them data, but carefully selected data that doesn't hurt us long term. We watch everyone closely, especially the people who seem above suspicion, and we prepare for the shareholder meeting. What if we can't find the leak in time? Then we burn everything down and rebuild, but I'd rather not let it come to that. The meeting ended with everyone looking shell-shocked. Christine left first, still crying. David followed, muttering about IT security. Richard stayed behind with Catherine and Ethan. This is worse than I thought, Richard said quietly. If Vanguard's willing to threaten children, there's no line they won't cross. Which means we need protection, Catherine said. For everyone. Christine, her kids, all of us. Ethan shook his head. Private security would alert them that we know something's wrong. We need to be smarter, less obvious. What do you suggest? I have some contacts. People who know how to watch without being seen. Let me make some calls. After Catherine and Richard left, Ethan stood alone in the office and stared out at the city. This had escalated way beyond a simple corporate investigation. Threatening children crossed a line that turned this from business into something personal. He pulled out his phone and called Marcus. Yeah? I need help, the kind you used to provide. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What kind of help? Protection. For a civilian and her 2 kids. Someone's threatened them, and I need eyes on them without it being obvious. How serious are the threats? Serious enough that the person making them already has blackmail material and the resources to follow through. This is for your Novatech thing? Yeah. You're getting in deep, Ethan. I know, but I can't walk away now. Kids are involved. Marcus sighed. Give me the details. I'll make some calls. It won't be cheap. I'll pay whatever it costs. It's not about money. It's about availability. Good people are booked months in advance. Then find people who owe you favors. Yeah, okay. Send me names, addresses, photos, routines, everything you have. I'll see what I can do. Ethan spent the next hour compiling everything about Christine Valdez's children. Their school, their schedule, their father's custody arrangement. He sent it all to Marcus with a note. These kids are innocent. Whatever happens, they don't get hurt. Marcus's response? Understood. I'll have someone in place by tomorrow. The rest of the day, Ethan went through the motions of his cover job while his mind worked on the bigger puzzle. Someone inside Novatech was coordinating everything. Someone smart enough to hide behind multiple layers of deception. Someone who knew how investigations worked and how to create false trails. At lunch, he sat in the cafeteria and watched the executives. James Sullivan ate alone, working on his laptop between bites. Christine Valdez sat with her sales team, but barely touched her food. David Morse didn't show up at all. And then there was Amanda Ross. Catherine's assistant moved through the cafeteria like a ghost, picking up a salad to go, nodding at a few people but not engaging. She'd been in every meeting Ethan had attended, heard every conversation, had access to Catherine's calendar, her emails, her confidential files. The perfect position to gather intelligence without anyone noticing. Ethan made a note to look into Amanda more carefully. At 3 o'clock, his phone rang. Unknown number. He stepped into a stairwell to answer. Mr. Cole? The voice was distorted, run through some kind of filter. Male or female, he couldn't tell. Who is this? Someone who appreciates your work. You're very good at finding things. Ethan's blood went cold. What do you want? I want you to stop. Walk away from Novatech. Go back to your warehouse job. Raise your daughter. Live a quiet life. And if I don't? Then your daughter has another accident. But this time it won't be a broken nose. It'll be something you can't fix. The line went dead. Ethan stood there, phone pressed to his ear, rage and fear warring in his chest. They'd threatened Lily. Actually threatened his 6-year-old daughter. Wrong move. He called Grace immediately, told her everything. She listened without interrupting, then said, I'm putting a security detail on your apartment. They'll be there within the hour. Will Lily notice? No, they're professionals. She won't see them unless something happens.
What about Mrs. Chen? She's watching Lily during the day. We'll cover her too. Ethan, are you okay? No, but I will be. He took a breath. They just made a mistake. A big one. What do you mean? They showed me they're scared, which means we're close to something important. Keep digging into everyone at Novatech. Board members, executives, assistants. I want complete backgrounds on all of them. That'll take time. We have 2 weeks. Use it.
Ethan went back to his desk and worked until 6, then took the bus home. Spent the entire ride scanning for anyone following him. Didn't see anyone, but that didn't mean they weren't there. When he got to the apartment, Lily was waiting with Mrs. Chen. She ran to him and hugged him tight. "Daddy, Mrs. Chen taught me how to make spring rolls." Ethan held his daughter close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, and silently promised whoever had threatened her that they'd regret it. After Mrs. Chen left and Lily was in bed, Ethan sat in the dark and made a list. Everyone who had access to Catherine's office. Everyone who'd been in the meetings where sensitive information was discussed. Everyone who could have coordinated the threats against Christine's children. The list was longer than he wanted, but one name kept standing out. Amanda Ross, Catherine's assistant. Quiet, efficient, invisible. With access to everything and motives no one had bothered to investigate. Ethan pulled out his laptop and started digging. What he found made everything click into place, and he realized they'd been looking in completely the wrong direction. Amanda Ross had been Catherine Pierce's assistant for 11 years. Started fresh out of college, worked her way up from receptionist to trusted right hand. She knew where every body was buried because she'd helped dig half the graves. That was what Ethan's research showed him at 2 a.m. while Lily slept and the apartment creaked around him. But what the research also showed was something nobody had bothered to check. Amanda's brother, Michael Ross, was a senior partner at Vanguard Capital. Same last name, same hometown, same parents listed on social media profiles that Amanda had carefully scrubbed but not carefully enough. Ethan sat back and stared at the screen. It was almost too obvious. The CEO's assistant working with her brother to destroy the company from the inside. Feeding him every decision, every weakness, every confidential detail. No wonder Vanguard had moved with surgical precision. They'd had a map of the entire battlefield drawn by someone who'd been there for over a decade. He sent everything to Grace with a single message. Found her. What now? Her response came at 2:30. "Don't move yet. We need ironclad proof before we accuse Catherine's most trusted employee. Give me 6 hours." Ethan tried to sleep but couldn't. His mind kept running scenarios, planning approaches, calculating what would happen when they exposed Amanda. At 6, he gave up and made coffee. Started breakfast for Lily. She emerged from the bedroom at 7, rubbing her eyes. "You look tired, Daddy." "Just working on a problem." "Did you solve it?" "Getting close." They ate together in comfortable silence. Lily told him about the book she was reading with Mrs. Chen, something about a girl who could talk to animals. Ethan listened and made appropriate sounds, but his mind was elsewhere, running through what needed to happen today. At 8:30, Grace called. "We have her. Amanda's been using an encrypted messaging app to communicate with her brother. Our tech team broke through the encryption last night. She's been feeding Vanguard everything for 8 months. Since before I was hired. She knew Catherine was getting desperate, probably suggested bringing in outside consultants to make it look like Catherine was being proactive. Then when you actually started finding things, Amanda adjusted, planted the evidence against Sullivan to throw you off track, set up Christine to take the fall, all while feeding her brother real-time updates on everything you discovered. Ethan felt cold satisfaction settle in his chest. "When do we move?" "Today. The shareholder meeting is in 10 days. We need to expose this now before Vanguard can pivot." Grace paused. "There's one complication." "What?" "Amanda's gone. Her apartment is empty. Her car's missing. She cleared out sometime last night." "She ran." "Looks that way. Which means either she got spooked or someone warned her." Ethan thought about the phone call yesterday. The distorted voice threatening Lily. "She knows we're on to her. The threat against my daughter was her last move before disappearing. Then we need to find her before she disappears completely. I'm sending you coordinates. Meet me there in 1 hour." The coordinates led to a coffee shop in the financial district. Grace was waiting at a back table, laptop open, looking like she'd been awake as long as Ethan. Marcus Webb sat across from her, which was a surprise. "Didn't know you'd be here," Ethan said, sliding into the booth. "Grace called me in. Figured you could use backup." Marcus looked older than Ethan remembered, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes, but the same dangerous competence in the way he carried himself. "Heard someone threatened your kid." "They did, and they're going to regret it. That's the spirit." Marcus turned the laptop so Ethan could see. "We've been tracking Amanda's digital footprint. Last credit card charge was at a gas station outside Ashford at midnight. After that, nothing. She's gone dark." Grace pulled up another window. "But her brother hasn't. Michael Ross has been active all morning. Multiple calls, texts, emails, he's scrambling." "Because his inside source disappeared and he doesn't know why," Ethan said. "Exactly. Which gives us leverage." Grace closed the laptop. "Here's the play. We go to Catherine with everything we have. She calls an emergency board meeting. We expose Amanda and present evidence of the conspiracy. The board votes to reject Vanguard's takeover. Case closed." "Except it's not that simple," Marcus said. "Michael Ross isn't going to just accept defeat. And if Amanda's running, she's either scared or she's setting up something bigger. Either way, this isn't over." Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Your daughter's school starts in 20 minutes. Would be a shame if something happened during drop-off." He showed it to Grace and Marcus. Both of them went still. "That's Amanda," Grace said. "She's escalating." Ethan was already standing. "I need to get to Lily. Now." "I'm coming with you," Marcus said. They took Grace's car, running red lights and weaving through traffic. Ethan called Mrs. Chen. No answer. Called again. Still nothing. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. They reached the apartment building in 12 minutes. Ethan took the stairs 3 at a time, Marcus right behind him. Pounded on Mrs. Chen's door. No answer. Tried his own apartment. Locked. He fumbled with his keys, got the door open. Empty. The breakfast dishes were still on the table. Lily's backpack was gone. Mrs. Chen's purse wasn't on the counter where she usually left it. Ethan's phone rang. Mrs. Chen's number. "Where are you?" "Mr. Cole?" Mrs. Chen's voice was shaking. "A woman came to the apartment. Said she was from the school. Said there was an emergency and she needed to take Lily immediately." "Where's Lily now?" "She's with the woman. I tried to stop her, but she had identification. She knew Lily's name. She said, what did she look like?" 30s, dark hair, professional clothes. She said her name was Amanda. Said you'd sent her. Ethan closed his eyes. "When did they leave?" 10 minutes ago, maybe less. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry. I thought..." "It's not your fault. Call the police. Tell them everything. I'm going to get my daughter back." He hung up and turned to Marcus. "Amanda has Lily." Marcus was already on his phone, typing rapidly. "I'm activating every contact I have in this city. We'll find them." Grace arrived 5 minutes later. Between the 3 of them, they had access to traffic cameras, security footage, and a network of people who knew how to find someone who didn't want to be found. Within 20 minutes, they had a hit. A car matching Amanda's description had been spotted heading toward the industrial district. Old warehouses, most of them abandoned. Perfect place to hide. They took 2 cars, Ethan and Marcus in one, Grace following in hers. Marcus drove while Ethan checked the pistol Grace had given him, something he hadn't touched in years but his hands remembered the weight of. "You good?" Marcus asked. "No, but I will be. She's using your daughter as leverage. Probably wants to trade her for the evidence against Vanguard. She can want whatever she likes. I'm not negotiating." Marcus smiled grimly. "There's the Ethan I remember." They found Amanda's car parked behind an old textile warehouse. Empty. Marcus checked for explosives while Ethan scanned the building. 3 stories, multiple entrances, plenty of places to hide. "She's inside," Marcus said. "Question is whether she's alone." Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Amanda's number. "Come inside, alone. Or I hurt her." He showed it to Marcus, who shook his head. "That's a trap." "I know, but she has Lily. Then we need a plan that doesn't get you both killed." Grace pulled up and got out of her car. "I called the police. They're on the way, but they're at least 15 minutes out." "We don't have 15 minutes." Ethan started toward the building. Marcus grabbed his arm. "Don't be stupid. Going in blind gets people killed." "Then help me not be blind." They spent 3 minutes doing recon. found a side entrance that wasn't visible from the main floor. Marcus would go in there while Ethan entered through the front, drawing attention. Grace would stay outside and coordinate with police when they arrived. It wasn't a good plan, but it was the one they had. Ethan walked through the front door of the warehouse into a space that smelled like rust and abandonment. His footsteps echoed on concrete. Somewhere above him, he heard movement. "I'm here," he called out. "Let my daughter go." Amanda's voice came from the second floor. "Come up, slowly. Hands where I can see them." Ethan climbed the stairs, every nerve on fire. The second floor was mostly open space, broken up by support columns and old machinery. At the far end, Amanda stood with Lily. His daughter looked terrified but unharmed. Amanda had one hand on her shoulder, the other held a phone. "That's far enough," Amanda said when Ethan was 20 feet away. He stopped, studied the situation. Lily's eyes were red from crying, but she wasn't hurt. Amanda looked exhausted, desperate. The kind of desperate that made people do stupid things. "Let her go," Ethan said quietly. "This is between us." "Nothing is between us. You're just the hired help who got too good at his job." Amanda's voice was bitter. "Catherine brought you in to find a leak. You found one. Congratulations, but you don't understand what you're disrupting. I understand you've been selling out your boss for 8 months. I understand you threatened a 6-year-old girl. That's all I need to understand. My brother offered me $10 million to help Vanguard acquire Novatech. $10 million, Mr. Cole. Do you know what that kind of money means? It means you sold your integrity for a number." Amanda laughed, harsh and ugly. "Integrity doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't fix a sick parent who needs experimental treatment insurance won't cover. It doesn't buy you a life that's worth living." She tightened her grip on Lily's shoulder. "Catherine Pierce built her company on the backs of people like me, underpaid assistants who work 80 hours a week and watch other people get rich. She deserves what's happening to her." "Maybe she does," Ethan said. "But my daughter doesn't deserve to be part of this. Let her go." "I will. As soon as you give me the evidence you collected, all of it, every file, every recording, every piece of documentation that ties me to Vanguard. And if I do that, you'll just disappear with $10 million while my daughter stays traumatized by the woman who kidnapped her? Better than the alternative." "Which is?" Amanda held up the phone. "One button, and this building comes down. I have explosives planted on the support columns. We all die. But at least I take you with me." Ethan felt ice in his veins. "You're bluffing." "Am I? You want to bet your daughter's life on that?" He didn't, but he also knew that giving Amanda what she wanted wouldn't guarantee Lily's safety. Desperate people broke promises, and Amanda had already proven she'd do anything to protect herself. "Daddy." Lily's voice was small, terrified. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart, I promise." "You can't promise that," Amanda said. "You can't control this. Nobody can. That's what people like Catherine never understand. They think they're in charge, think they can buy loyalty, but eventually everyone has a price. You found mine. Your daughter just happens to be the collateral." Something moved in Ethan's peripheral vision. Marcus, coming up through the side stairwell, staying low behind machinery. Ethan kept his eyes on Amanda, not giving away his friend's position. "You said your mother is sick," Ethan said, keeping Amanda talking. "What's wrong with her? Cancer? Stage 4. Treatment that might save her costs $2 million and isn't covered by insurance." Amanda's voice cracked. "I watched my father die broke because he couldn't afford the care he needed. I won't watch my mother go the same way." "So you betray everyone who trusted you?" "I do what I have to do, just like you did when you walked away from the military. Just like Catherine does every time she fires someone to improve her profit margins. We all make choices, Mr. Cole. Mine just happened to be more honest about it." Marcus was in position now, behind a column 15 feet from Amanda. Ethan caught his eye, counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. Marcus moved fast, coming around the column in a combat stance. Amanda spun, saw him, raised the phone. Ethan lunged forward, closing the distance in 3 steps. Amanda's finger came down on the phone screen. Nothing happened. She pressed again. Still nothing. Looked at the phone in confusion. "Looking for this?" Grace's voice came from the stairs. She held up a small electronic device. "Signal jammer. Been running since you sent that text. Your detonator can't reach the explosives." Amanda's face went white. She shoved Lily away and ran for the far exit. Marcus tackled her before she made it 5 steps, taking her down hard on the concrete. Ethan caught Lily as she stumbled forward, pulling her into his arms. "I've got you. You're safe. I've got you." Lily sobbed against his chest while police sirens finally wailed in the distance. Marcus had Amanda in a hold she couldn't break, reading her rights while she screamed and thrashed. Grace was already on the phone with Catherine, filling her in. Ethan just held his daughter and felt the adrenaline drain out of him, replaced by exhaustion and relief, and rage at how close they'd come to losing everything. The aftermath took hours. Police questioning, statements, evidence collection. The bomb squad cleared the building. Amanda had been bluffing about the explosives, but no one had wanted to take chances. By the time they let Ethan leave, it was past noon and Lily had fallen asleep against his shoulder in the back of a police cruiser. Grace drove them home. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway, face wet with tears. "I'm so sorry. I should have known." "You couldn't have known," Ethan said. "She fooled everyone." He carried Lily into the apartment and put her in bed. She stirred but didn't wake. He sat beside her for a long time, watching her breathe, feeling his hands shake with the adrenaline crash. Grace appeared in the doorway. "You should eat something." "Not hungry." "Eat anyway. You're going to crash if you don't." She made him a sandwich he didn't taste and coffee he didn't want. They sat at the small kitchen table while Grace filled him in on what was happening at Novatech. Catherine called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. She has all the evidence against Amanda and her brother. The board's voting to reject Vanguard's takeover offer and pursue legal action against everyone involved. What about Sullivan, Valdez, and Morse? Christine's cooperating fully. She gave us access to the server and everything on it. Sullivan's lawyering up, but he'll probably cut a deal to avoid prison. Morse resigned this morning. And Catherine? Still CEO, still fighting, but she knows how close she came to losing everything. Grace leaned back. She wants to thank you personally. Offered a bonus. I don't want it. Ethan, I don't want the money. I want my daughter to be safe. I want to never see another corporate boardroom or encrypted message or desperate executive for the rest of my life. He rubbed his face. I'm done, Grace. After this, I'm out. What will you do? I don't know. Maybe go back to the warehouse. Maybe find something else. But nothing like this. No more intelligence work. No more gray areas. Just something simple where the worst thing that happens is I lift a box wrong. Grace was quiet for a moment. You're good at this work. Better than most people I've ever seen. Being good at something doesn't mean you should do it. No, I suppose it doesn't. She stood. The bonus is yours whether you want it or not. Catherine insisted. It'll be in your account by tomorrow. After Grace left, Ethan sat in the dark apartment and thought about the past 3 weeks. The investigation, the threats, the moment Amanda had grabbed Lily, all of it for a company he didn't care about and executives he'd never see again. But it had paid for Lily's shoes, had paid the rent, had given them breathing room. The question was whether it had been worth the cost. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart, you okay? She climbed into his lap and buried her face against his chest. That woman was scary. I know, but she's gone now. The police have her. She can't hurt you anymore. Why did she take me? Ethan thought about how to answer that, how to explain greed and desperation and the choices people made when they stopped seeing others as human. Because she was in trouble and thought you could help her get out of it, but she was wrong. You saved me, always will. That's not negotiable. They sat there for a while, Lily in his lap, both of them quiet. Finally, she said, Can we have pancakes for dinner? Ethan almost laughed. After everything that had happened, his daughter wanted pancakes. Yeah, we can have pancakes. They made them together, Lily standing on a chair to stir the batter, both of them pretending today had been normal, ate while watching a cartoon. Went to bed early. The next morning, Ethan woke to his phone buzzing. Catherine Pierce. Mr. Cole, I wanted to call personally to thank you. Amanda's been arrested and charged with corporate espionage, fraud, and kidnapping. Her brother resigned from Vanguard this morning. The takeover is dead. I'm glad. The board met last night. We voted to offer you a permanent position, Director of Security, salary of $300,000, full benefits, equity stake in the company. Ethan watched Lily sleep in the next room. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to decline. There was a long pause. May I ask why? Because I have a daughter who's been through enough. Because I promised myself I'd give her a normal life.
And because I've learned that some jobs cost more than they pay, regardless of the number on the check. I understand. The bonus is still yours, and if you ever change your mind, the offer stands. Thank you, but I won't. He hung up and checked his bank account. The bonus had hit, $50,000. Added to what he'd already been paid, it was enough to live on for a while. Enough to take time finding the right job instead of the first job. Enough to breathe. 3 days later, Ethan was back at the Riverside warehouse. Not working. He'd quit that job the day after Lily was taken, but visiting. Marcus Rodriguez looked surprised to see him. Cole, heard you got some fancy corporate job. Turned it down. Actually, I came to talk to you about something. Yeah? You've been doing this job for 15 years. You know every system, every inefficiency, every way this place could run better. What if you had the chance to actually fix it? Marcus frowned. What are you talking about? I'm talking about buying this warehouse, running it properly, treating the workers like human beings instead of disposable parts. Ethan pulled out a folder. I've been doing research. The current owner's looking to sell. I have the capital for a down payment. What I don't have is someone who knows the business, someone who could actually make it work. You want me to partner with you? I want you to run it. I'll handle the business side, you handle operations. We split profits 50-50. Pay people fair wages. Create something that actually works instead of just grinding people down. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. You're serious? Completely. Why? Because I spent 3 weeks living in a world where people betray each other for money, where children get threatened to close business deals, where everyone's trying to screw everyone else. And I'm tired of it. I want to build something different, something honest, and I think you do too. Marcus looked around the warehouse, at the workers moving through their shifts, exhausted and underpaid and going nowhere. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I do. They shook hands. 2 months later, Ethan stood in the same warehouse, now under new ownership, new management, new rules. The workers had better pay, better hours, better treatment. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was better, and better mattered. Lily started back at school, got placed in a different class, away from Tommy Henderson, made new friends, slowly stopped having nightmares about the woman who'd taken her. She still wore her purple light-up shoes, though they were getting small. Ethan had promised they'd get new ones when the time came. Mrs. Chen still watched her sometimes, though Ethan could afford actual childcare now. He paid her anyway, because kindness deserved to be repaid. Marcus Webb called occasionally, checking in. The protection detail he'd arranged for Christine Valdez's children stayed in place until the trial ended. Christine got full custody. Amanda got 12 years. Her brother got 15. Grace offered Ethan other jobs. He turned them all down. Their friendship survived it. Catherine Pierce sent Christmas cards. Ethan never responded, but he didn't throw them away either. And slowly, carefully, Ethan built a life that looked nothing like what he'd planned but felt more like home than anything he'd known since Sarah died. It wasn't the life of a war hero or corporate strategist or whatever he'd once imagined himself becoming. It was the life of a man who owned a warehouse and raised his daughter and tried to treat people with basic decency in a world that didn't always reward it. Some nights when Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Ethan thought about Amanda's question. Whether everyone had a price, whether integrity was just a luxury for people who could afford it. He'd seen enough to know the world was complicated, that good people did bad things for understandable reasons, that survival sometimes required compromises, that the lines between right and wrong were blurrier than he'd believed when he was younger. But he'd also seen that choices mattered, that protecting the people you loved meant more than protecting your bank account. That being invisible wasn't the same as being powerless, and that sometimes the greatest revenge against those who tried to destroy you was simply refusing to become what they expected, refusing to stay beaten, staying buried, staying silent. Ethan had been invisible for years. The warehouse worker, the struggling father, the man the world looked past without a second thought. He'd learned that invisibility could be a weapon, that underestimation was an advantage, that the people who wrote you off as ordinary were the ones who never saw you coming. But more than that, he'd learned that being ordinary wasn't the same as being powerless, that raising a good kid and running an honest business and treating people with dignity were victories that mattered more than the ones he'd once chased in war zones and boardrooms.
On a Tuesday in March, Lily came home from school with a drawing she'd made. It showed two stick figures, one big, one small, holding hands under a rainbow. The big one had a smile. The small one had purple shoes. "That's us," Lily said proudly. Ethan taped it to the refrigerator next to the rent receipt and the warehouse payroll and all the other ordinary pieces of the life they'd built. "Yeah," he said, looking at his daughter. "That's us." And for the first time in years, he meant it without reservation. The underdog they'd dismissed hadn't just survived, he'd won. Not by destroying his enemies or accumulating wealth or proving himself to anyone. He'd won by choosing what mattered, by protecting what was worth protecting, by building instead of burning. And in a world that measured success by power and money and status, that was the most radical victory of all. Ethan Cole was nobody. Just another father raising his kid, running his business, living his quiet life in a city that would never remember his name. And he'd never been more powerful.